Dan, your hair's getting so long.
No, I can't find a barber.
Come in with my clippers. Let me know.
Oh, I'll take a number one.
June 9th, 2020 meeting of the Yarmouth Board of Selectmen is about to be convened. As a precautionary measure to reduce the spread of coronavirus, all town buildings are closed to the public. Therefore, this meeting will be held by remote participation. My name is Mike Stone, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen. I'll begin by seeking a motion to conduct this meeting via remote participation and to take a roll call vote for quorum purposes.
So moved.
Well, Tracy makes that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Norm?
Yeah, I'm having trouble with Zoom right now for some reason.
Norm's having a problem with Zoom. Okay, Mark?
We can see and hear you, Norm.
Aye.
Tracy?
Yeah.
Aye.
I vote aye. So our meeting is open via remote participation. My understanding is Eric will not be here tonight. Well, visually, he never is, but he's not going to be here by audio either. In addition, Town Administrator Dan Knappich is present at this meeting. And the host was Kyle Pedicini. He is with me. The meeting is now open. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's March 23, 2020 order imposing strict limitations of the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Yarmouth Board of Selectmen is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings as provided for in the order. Persons who would like to view this meeting while in progress may do so by watching this virtual meeting or the live via the town's YouTube channel. We will also post a recording of this meeting on the Town of Yarmouth website as soon as we're able to do so. Please be patient as we work to overcome any technological challenges with the virtual meeting. To reduce confusion during the meeting, all participants of the virtual meeting are muted by the host. As participants are called upon to speak, they will be unmuted. Members of the public attending or viewing this meeting virtually will be able to use the raise hand button to identify themselves to the chair when called upon. The host will then unmute your audio. If you are dialed into the phone number provided, you can press *9 on your phone to indicate that you would like to speak. As part, okay. Please wait for the chairman to recognize you before speaking. In addition, public comments may be submitted via email to publiccomment@yarmouth.ma.us. That's public comment singular @yarmouth.ma.us. This account will be monitored during the meeting by Kyle and provided to the chairman as it may be applicable. If you're called upon to speak during the meeting, please consider the following guidelines. Do not use speakerphones, do not use Bluetooth devices, mute all background noises, and clearly state your name each and every time prior to speaking. All votes must be roll call votes. After a motion is made and there is a second, the chair will take the roll call vote. All motions, decisions, documents, and letters will be verbally read into the record to the greatest extent feasible. If it appears the meeting cannot or should not proceed, then the host will recommend that the chair request to continue the hearing to a later date and time and/or until public meetings can resume normally. At this point, we will commence our meeting, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us in the pledge.
Give the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
under God,
with liberty and justice
liberty
for
and
all.
justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Norm.
That was Selectman Norm Holcomb holding the flag. He has come prepared tonight, and that is a good thing. So I guess we'll entertain public comment at this time. Kyle, do we have anybody wishing to be heard in public comment?
Mr. Chairman, we have a Margot O'Brien who has raised her hand. You are now permitted to talk. You just need to unmute yourself.
Okay, so who is the first person?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just letting you know that I was here. This is Marga.
Margo's the applicant for one of the liquor applicants.
Correct.
Oh, okay, all right.
I thought we were just supposed to let you know.
We're gonna be with you shortly, Margot. No, that's great that you checked in and we know you're here. That's good.
Okay, thank you.
After public comment, we're gonna do the 2 licensing matters.
Yep.
Is there anyone else, Kyle?
We have a phone ending in 3378.
3378, that's probably Vita. Is that you, Vita?
Yes, it is.
I just took
Can
a
you hear
guess.
me?
Every time he tells me there's a number ending in 4 digits, it's always you, so.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes,
Good.
yes. I'm interested in this ad or commercial that has been running on the Ed Lambert program about how to order mail-in ballots, and I'm just curious. Did this board vote to do this, and you know, what would have been the reason for it? And doesn't it cost money to do that?
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Go ahead.
Yeah, a few meetings ago, we had Phil Gaudette, the clerk, in to present to you a media strategy such that we could encourage people to vote and how to do it most efficiently under these circumstances. And along with that documentation, there was a budget, and associated with that was information on a mailer and also some radio commercials.
But how much are these commercials costing us? There's not another town doing anything like that.
Well, you know, as you know, we had to move the election date significantly away from the original date, coupled with the fact that there is a debt exclusion on the ballot. It's a very important election for the town. So the radio spots, I want to say, were in the neighborhood of about $30 per spot or $20 per spot. The entire campaign is around $4,000, I believe.
I thought
Are
he
you
said that there was
serious?
some grant money, Dan, that was
Pardon?
gonna pay for that.
Yeah, I don't have the memo in front of me, but it was all part of the town clerk strategy as it relates to.
But I don't see what that has to do.
people.
If you just wanted to notify people of the date or the change in the date for the election, that's all that was needed. This is encouraging people to order the mail-in ballots. And was that something that the board voted on?
Mail-in ballots is a very safe way to have people.
I don't care if it is or it isn't. I'm saying to you, your original explanation of why this is being done doesn't square with what I asked. I mean, why did the board vote for this, and why are we doing this? All you needed to do is maybe remind people of the date of the meeting. That's it. And I don't. It doesn't even give the place.
As I recall,
So I mean, this is what is needed. This is somebody's agenda being furthered by and at the expense of town taxpayers.
as I recall, Vita, and I don't have it in front of me, that Phil Gaudette wrote a memo and explained the cost of each election that this was done for. And as I remember, it was not going to cost the town any money. There was some kind of funds that were going to pay for this. We'll dig out that memo and get it to you.
I mean, truly, this sounds too peculiar for words, because no other town is doing anything like that, and it sounds like somebody's trying to promote some kind of an agenda. If all you wanted to do is to let the people know that there was a change in the date of the election or the town meeting or whatever, that's all that was needed to be done. And I would like to see it, but I would think that that would be something that the board would have voted if there are any monies involved, or even if it's being paid. But I mean, I would very much like to know what was the source of the money.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was not gonna cost the Yarmouth taxpayers any money.
Ed Centeo says it's been funded by early voting funds and COVID-19 funds.
Huh? What does that mean?
It means with all the delays to town activities and the interruptions, there is money that's been provided to ameliorate the communities and their cost associated with doing regular business.
I would call this a rather irregular business. I honestly don't think that you people should be running that ad anymore, except with the possible exception to tell the people when the town meeting and the town election will be held, because it really smacks. And all these first is grants and now it's COVID-19, and it's all very peculiar. I don't understand this. I mean, it's as though we couldn't use that money for a more better purpose or something like that.
I'm not sure what you're worried about, Vita. All we're trying to do is communicate with people so that they understand what the status of town meeting is and the election that's going to occur and the vote that's going to occur. And I think trying to do that, given the uncertainty of the crisis that we're in, I think is something you ought to be really happy about. If we get more and more people involved, the danger has been that we would have 15 people show up. We may still, but 15 people show up at town meeting because nobody knew where it was, when it was, and so forth.
This thing so far is not telling us the date, the date of the town meeting. That's for sure. That's not at all involved. This is all putting in an order to get a ballot by mail. Is all it is. And so therefore, as I said, it unfortunately it smacks of somebody interposing themselves with some kind of an agenda in mind here.
There may be people, Vita, that are apprehensive to go to voting locations because of the risk of contracting the virus, and they may be relieved to be able to vote by absentee ballot. Still participate.
It's just something is not quite right. If not another town in the whole of Cape Cod is doing something like this. It's just that's why it smacks as though somebody is pushing this for some reason. And okay, I'm going to drop it, but I'm really upset about this.
Okay, thank you,
Sounds
Vita.
to me like you're trying to turn something that we're doing to enhance community communication into some conspiracy theory, and I don't think that that's appropriate.
Oh, really? I don't care what.
Okay, we're not gonna have argument here or debate. That's not what public comment is for. So do we have anyone else, Kyle?
We have Tom, Nick.
Tom, who?
Nick, probably Nicanello, I'm
Oh,
guessing.
Tom Nicanello. Tom, can you hear
Yes,
me?
how are you? Good evening.
Good,
everyone.
how are you?
Very good. Yes, I have a public comment, not a public debate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to say, owning 2 restaurants here, I'd like to just to thank you folks for being proactive. As you know, the restaurant business is really not what it used to be, and it's very discomforting for owners of restaurants, employees of restaurants, and even our guests and our residents. So from what you guys are developing with town staff and the town administrator, I'd like to say full speed ahead, and thank you very much. And you all have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else, Kyle? Okay. I think we're ready then for our first licensing matter. Get the paperwork on that for the public notice. And that's the Papagino's. Is anyone that was noticed for what, 6:15? Is anybody here on the Papagino's licensing matter?
Advertisement says 6 PM.
Okay. We have anybody, Kyle? that you
I am
can-
here from Papagino's. My name is Jim Poirier,
Yep, we have Alana, Mao, and Jim. Both
Jim
have raised their
Poirier?
hands.
and I believe Elena might be on a telephone call.
Okay. Jim, I'm gonna read the.
Elena, I'm here.
All right, good. So we have both Jim and Elena. All right. Jim, are you gonna be making the presentation?
I haven't had to in the past, but I'm the one that filled out the paperwork, so
Okay.
I probably
so-
can answer any questions you
Right.
may have.
All right, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read the public notice into the record, and you can summarize really what it is you're looking the board to do, and we'll see if there's any comments from the public or from questions or comments from the board members. The Yarmouth Board of Selectmen, acting as the local licensing authority, has received an application for a new annual wine and malt restaurant license from New England Authentic Eats LLC DBA Papagino's. Elena, is it Mayo or Mayo?
I believe
Manager.
Mayo.
Mayo. The premise, located at 940 Route 28, South Yarmouth, is a freestanding building. It is a single-floor unit with a dining room having a seating capacity of 96, a kitchen area, an office area, walk-in refrigerator, freezers, and restrooms. Hearing will be held remotely on Tuesday, June 9th, 2020, at Town Hall, 1146 Route 28, South Yarmouth. The Selectmen's meeting begins at 6 p.m. Written comments will be accepted until 4:30 Friday, June 5th, 2020, in the Selectmen's office at Town Hall via the Dropbox, or can be submitted electronically to publiccomment@yarmouth.ma.us. Please see the posted agenda on the town website 48 hours prior to the meeting for further instructions on electronic participation. So Jim, just tell us very briefly what this application is about.
Okay, in the past, Papagino's had served beer from kegs for many, many years. And then when it transitioned, new owners didn't want to deal with beer or licensing. But the current officers of the restaurants think that beer and wine go together. And so instead of having kegs, we have little individual beer bottles and wine bottles as a good pairing up, just trying to help some of the inside sales that some of the bigger restaurants struggle with.
Okay. Did you get that on the checklist? It says on the TAM certificate, it says certificate to be issued. Was that issued yet?
Yes, it was. I sent it to, oh God, I'm drawing a blank on a lady's name. But she
Linda?
said, yes, and
Linda Hall, yep.
she was able to print it. She confirmed with me.
Okay. So when did you send that to Linda?
Just before the weekend, possibly.
Late last week?
Yeah.
I think it was yes,
All right.
or maybe Friday.
Right. And are all your employees, are they tip certified, or do they have certification from one of the approved programs?
We did TAM certification for the general manager, Elena,
Okay.
and we can certainly do the whole rest of the team prior to getting the license.
You have to do anybody that's actually serving the alcohol.
Correct. Which is, we have people on duty, open to close, that will be certified.
Okay.
all management gets certified with our company.
Have you had an opportunity, how long have you been operating that business?
Oh, Papa Gino's has been around. That's an older restaurant. I
No,
would
know
guess.
that, but how long have you been involved with it?
Since they merged with D'Angelo in 1997.
Okay. All right. Does anybody from the public want to be heard on this matter? Is there anybody out there, Kyle?
We have Tom, Nick, Anello.
Yes, good afternoon. Yes, I would like to totally endorse Papa Gino's. It's been a great facility here in Yarmouth since 1980, and it serves the public very well. And we also like to encourage them to be part of our local Chamber of Commerce. So with that, we totally endorse what their plans are, and we wish them lots of luck.
Thank
Okay,
you,
so
Tom.
you have a combination endorsement and solicitation.
That sounds great.
Okay, and your hours are 10 to 11, 7 days a week. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. I don't see anything else from the public, do I, Kyle? So does anybody from the board wish to have any questions or make any comments about this application?
I have one question.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Just about because perhaps it's because it's a holdings corp. So the license belongs to the holdings corp. Is that correct, Jim?
Under New England Authentic Eats, yes. We
Okay,
were
'cause
just
they're-
approved for probably maybe 4 or 5 beer licenses in the last 2 months. So the paperwork goes through pretty easily.
I was just curious why it said not a US citizen. Is it because it's a corporation, not an
Because the
individual?
corporation, yeah.
Okay.
The members of the corporation are, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, they have to be.
Mhm.
Or I forget the exact, they at least have the controlling interest has to be by
Correct.
citizens.
Yep.
And you have that, right?
Yes.
Okay,
I move we
anybody
close
else?
the hearing.
My only other question is to make sure that we are listed as the certificate holder for the certificate of liability insurance.
Yeah, we can fix that. We have the liquor liability already in place, but some towns once in a while ask for their name on it, and that's not a problem at all.
Yeah, that's just an additional endorsement, that's all.
Mhm.
But it's a good point. Norm, did you have any questions or comments?
I'm all set.
Okay,
I'll make a motion, close the public hearing.
do I have a second?
I already moved it, but now I'll second
Oh,
it, sure.
sorry, I
Okay.
didn't hear you.
We'll take a roll call vote on closing the public hearing. Norm,
Aye.
Tracy,
Aye.
Mark. Can't get Mark. I'll
He's
vote
muted.
aye, so we have a majority. So the public hearing is now closed. Okay, Mark has joined us. So we have 4 votes to close the public hearing. Do I have a motion on the underlying application?
I move we accept the application.
Second,
Okay, have a second?
second.
Tracy seconds Norm's motion to accept the application. Let's take a vote. Mark,
Aye.
Tracy,
Aye.
Norm,
Aye.
I vote aye as well. So that application is unanimously approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye. Good luck.
Okay, next liquor licensing matter is for the transfer and pledge of the all alcohol license from Yarmouth Wine and Spirits to Ocean Shore. So who do we have on that?
We have a John Kenny is raising his hand.
John Kenny, Attorney John Kenny. John, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, very clearly. I'm going to read the notice into the record, John, and then I'm gonna let you tell us briefly what this transfer is about, and then see if there's any comments one way or the other from the public, and then go to the board for their questions and comments, if any, okay?
Thank you.
The Yarmouth Board of Selectmen, acting as the local licensing authority, has received an application for a transfer and pledge of an annual all alcohol package store license from Ocean Shores Corporation, doing business as Yarmouth Wine and Spirits. Margot G. O'Brien, manager. Ocean Shores Corporation has also applied to pledge the license and inventory to Cape Cod 5-cent Savings Bank. The license is being transferred from Yarmouth Wine and Spirits LLC, doing business as Yarmouth Wine and Spirits, Frank Manoli, manager. The premise located at 484H Station Ave, South Yarmouth, is an end unit containing 8,960 square feet with one front customer entrance / exit, two rear exit / entrances, one 47 by 20 walk-in cooler, employee break rooms, rear storage and work area, and front office, all on one floor. The hearing will be held remotely on Tuesday, June 9th, 2020 at Town Hall, 1146 Route 28, South Yarmouth. The Selectmen's meeting begins at 6:00 p.m. Written comments will be accepted until 4:30 Friday, June 5th, 2020 in the Selectmen's office at Town Hall via the Dropbox, or can be submitted electronically to publiccomment@yarmouth.ma.us. Please see the posted agenda on the town website 48 hours prior to the meeting for further instructions on electronic participation. John, why don't you give us a brief summary of this transfer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the Board of Selectmen for the Town of Yarmouth. For the record, my name is John Kenny. I'm an attorney with a law office in Centerville, and I represent Ocean Shores Corporation. And I believe joining me somewhere in the bullpen is Margot O'Brien, the president of the corporation, and her husband, Dan O'Brien, who's the treasurer and secretary of the corporation. And as you just stated, Mr. Chairman, we're seeking to, we have an asset purchase agreement to acquire the assets of Yarmouth Wine and Spirits, and we're seeking approval for the transfer of the all alcoholic beverages package store license from Yarmouth Wine and Spirits to Ocean Shores Corporation. My clients have an agreement with the landlord to take over the remaining lease at the site. So the intent is to continue to operate out of the location at 484H Station Avenue in South Yarmouth. And as you stated, we are seeking approval to pledge the inventory and the license to Cape Cod 5 as part of the financing package for this acquisition. The buyers are experienced operators in this industry. They own Cotuit Liquors here in the town of Barnstable, located in Cotuit on the Marston's Mills Cotuit line on Route 28. They've been operating that store for 24 years, and they have had 0 liquor license violations. They have an excellent reputation in Barnstable and within the industry itself. The current location at 484H Station Avenue, my clients believe, Mr. Manoli's created a great business, a very successful business there. My clients believe this is an excellent spot for a liquor license or package store. It's in a commercial area. It's serviced by a main road, Station Avenue, and it's surrounded by a lot of commercial properties, so there'd be minimal impacts on residential areas. The hours of operation, there would be no change. The store currently operates from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Sundays, and my clients intend to continue that. As far as the employees are concerned, the intent is to keep all employees that wish to remain on. My clients are familiar with Mr. Manoli's operation. They happen to be friends through the industry as well, and they know that they're well trained, and the intent is to keep anybody that wants to stay as employees. My clients are diligent about employee training, and they will continue to be so. And they also are diligent about screening for appropriate customers. One addition to this location that they will add from what they do at their Cotuit store is a license reader. And it's a little, I believe it's a little card reading device that will read the electronic information on your license and will confirm that the license is accurate and is a true license. So that's one step more that is not currently being done at this location that they will bring. So in summary, they're diligent about training, diligent about screening, and they are experienced operators, and they even intend to keep the name Yarmouth Wine and Spirits. So to the outsider, there will be no change in the business per se that would be visible to a customer. Ms. O'Brien and Mr. O'Brien are both available and would be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Okay, thank you very much. What I probably should do at this point is read a letter that I received from Phil Magnuson, just for members of the public. Phil is a retired Yarmouth police officer who also is an attorney, and he represents the police in licensing matters. He refers various things to this board. He conducts seminars to train owners, managers, employees of liquor stores and package stores so that they're fully knowledgeable of all the state and local requirements of their businesses. And he wrote a letter dated June 8th, 2020 that was addressed to Linda Hill, our licensing clerk, and myself. And here's what it says. Hi, Mike and Linda. I met this afternoon with Margot O'Brien, who will be manager of the establishment after the transfer. Margot has been in the package store business for over 25 years at Katuitt Liquors and plans to spend around 4 days a week on the premises. She is experienced and well qualified for the position. I reviewed the Yarmouth alcohol regulations pertaining to package stores with Ms. O'Brien and have given her paper and digital copies of the regulations and model policy. Please contact me if I can be of further assistance, Phil Magnuson. So that speaks well, in addition to your client's exemplary record in Barnstable. They're getting off to a nice start here by taking advantage of meeting with Phil Magnuson to get updated on local requirements as well as state requirements. I've looked at all your paperwork. It looks to be in fine order. Right now, I'm going to go to the public and see if we have anybody that wants to speak on this application. Kyle, do we have anybody?
Yep, we have a phone number ending in 3378.
Okay, do we know who that is?
I believe it's Miss Morris.
Vita, do you have
Yeah,
a?
Vita Morris. I just wanted to make a comment. I'm a little surprised that the current operators of the package store couldn't wait until at least noon on Sundays to open up. That's about it. I think it's a bit unfortunate, but that's it. Thank you.
My understanding is that these have been the hours all along. Am I correct on that, John?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chairman.
I don't think there's any change in what's historically been happening at that site. Is there anyone else, Kyle, from the public? Okay, I'll go to the board. Any questions or comments by any members of the board? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Oh, second.
Okay. On the motion to close the public hearing, we'll take a roll call vote. Norm?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. The public hearing is now closed. Can I have a motion on the underlying application?
I move we approve the application.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Who's the second? Tracy?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
I didn't see your face there. Just making sure it was you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion before we take a roll call vote? Seeing none, I'll go to Norm.
Aye.
Your vote. Tracy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That application is unanimously approved, and I wish you all the best of luck with the business.
And good
Thank
luck.
you very
to
much.
you. Well,
We're looking forward to it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Here's my agenda. 7 o'clock, revised fundraising / special event sign policy. Are we too early for that?
No, I think the staff is there. There's a memo in your packet from Kathy Williams about this, so.
Is Kathy here?
She looks to be.
Yes, she's on.
I'm here.
Good. You ready to go on the 7 o'clock matter, special event sign policy?
I certainly am.
Then we will hear from you.
I think the board may remember that last fall, the planning board had proposed and it was approved some amendments to the sign bylaw that would allow event promoters to have temporary signs for special events on town-owned lands for for-profit entities. Prior to this change, those larger 32 square foot signs had only been allowed for religious, civic, and nonprofit organizations. So when we had events like the Country Fest, which was for-profit at the drive-in site, they weren't eligible for this larger 32 square foot community event sign. So the change in the bylaw would now allow this through the Board of Selectmen's fundraising special event sign policy. So hand in hand with the zoning amendments, with changes that were going to be needed to your policy, these amendments and renaming the policy to fundraising and special event sign policy were presented to the Board of Selectmen last fall when we were reviewing the zoning amendments with you for special town meeting. In your packet, there's a red line version of those proposed changes, which is basically what you had seen last time, but also some yellow highlighted edits that have been added for even additional clarity as far as enforcement is concerned with regard to the bylaw. So I'm just here tonight, something you guys have seen before, to see if you had any questions and hopefully to get a vote to adopt the fundraising and special event sign policy.
So the yellow highlighted portions are the changes.
The red lines are the changes and the yellow highlighted is what's changed since you saw it last fall prior to special town meeting.
The yellow keys you into the red line changes?
Correct.
All right. Does anybody have any questions of Kathy? Any comments on this?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Mark?
Just a quick question, Kathy. Did we put a time parameter around this policy? I'm just curious. I'm curious.
You mean with regard to how long a sign could be up?
Yeah.
Yeah, special event signs may be installed for up to 21 days prior to the event and must be removed within 2 days of the completion of the event.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear on that. Thank you. Yep, I see it right there. Yep.
Tracy, do you have any questions or comments?
I'm just curious, is there a permit process or a fee for this?
There is a permit and a fee.
Where is that?
Oh, I'm sorry. The permit is required, but no fee will be charged. Excuse me.
So is that because it was a nonprofit, we weren't charging a fee? Is it typical that we charge a fee for signage for profitable organizations?
Right now, we were modifying the religious, civic, and nonprofit organizations to extend to for-profit through the policy. And so in the bylaw, it still contains the phrase, a permit from the building commissioner is required, but no fee will be charged. It's not in the policy itself, it's actually in the zoning bylaw.
Okay.
Norm, do you have any questions or comments?
I'm all set at this point.
Kathy, what are you seeking from us?
I'm seeking a vote from the board to adopt the fundraising and special event sign policy. It would be a Board of Selectmen policy.
Okay. Do I have a motion on that?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion in a second. Do we have any further discussion on it before voting? Seeing
Other
none.
than just to say thanks, Kathy.
You're more
Thanks,
than
Bill.
welcome. Thanks.
Okay, Mark,
Aye.
Tracy,
Aye.
Norm,
Aye.
I vote aye as well. So that passes by a vote of 4-0.
Thank you.
We do not have Eric tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Next item, 7:15, septic enterprise expense review and a vote.
Director Colby should be with us on this item.
We're not ready on that one yet.
I think we are. He's here.
You guys, Jeff's here?
Yep.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I see him now. See, Kyle is kind of protecting me from everybody until I need to know, and then he flashes up names, so I can't. I can see all the selectmen, but I can't see who's coming in. That's why I'm always asking him. And that's fine. Okay, so Dan, you want to give an introduction on this?
Yeah, so this is a further discussion from last week. We didn't have all the detail that Jeff was available to have this week as it relates. And the long and the short of it is the facility is short of money for operation purposes. And if we had had town meeting in April as originally intended, there would have been a supplemental appropriation request that would have addressed that. So now here we are in a situation where because of the conversation last week focused on capital related items, with a review of the budget and things that are within the budget, Director Colby was able to identify 3 specific capital items that, if approved from that, would free up enough operating money to be able to continue operating the facility.
You had sent out a short memo on this, or Jeff had, just prior to the meeting. Did everybody get that? I know
Yeah,
Norm did. I know Norm did because he made a comment on it, but I don't know if Tracy saw it or Mark saw it.
No.
Yeah, it came from me sometime earlier today.
Do you have it in front of you?
Yeah, Kyle, it should be up on the screen.
Oh, here it is. Yeah. Okay, so I won't go through it.
Mr. Chairman, I could cover some of the highlights if that would be helpful.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, just Dan did a great job with an overview, but just to cover some other elements, we've had a higher than anticipated cost of sludge disposal, which is a byproduct of the processing of the septic facility. I talked to the board a little bit about that during the budget development process, and we did increase next year's budget, FY21's budget, to cover some of those costs, but we are going to be short this year. And so, as Dan indicated, we covered, got approval from the board for $40,000 last week, which was very helpful. But this additional capital projects that total almost $60,000 will be needed in order to get us to June 22nd. We'll still need a supplemental appropriation, which is scheduled for Article number 1 at the annual town meeting to get us through the end of the fiscal year. But we're looking to, just incrementally work through the challenges. And as Dan mentioned, and I want to stress, if we had the town meeting back in end of April, beginning of May, we would have covered this and we wouldn't be in the same situation. So it is somewhat unique. What was created to cover unanticipated expenses before a town meeting could be held in order to keep the facility up and running is the septic reserve funds. And that's what we're looking authorization from the board to use for 3 specific projects in addition to the chiller project that you approved last week. And those are, real briefly, a ultraviolet light project, a SCADA upgrade project, which is the computer system that runs the facility, and a pump upgrade project. And those total nearly $60,000. And as I mentioned before, would get us to the June 22nd annual town meeting for the supplemental appropriation. The other thing I want to mention is that we do have more than sufficient revenues to cover these costs. This is an enterprise fund. It's self-supporting. We have retained earnings. We just can't spend any of those retained earnings until town meeting authorizes us to do so, which is what'll happen hopefully on June 22nd. So that's kind of an overview of where we are with that memo and the things I covered in the memo, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we support the funds for the septic projects from the septic reserve fund as outlined in the memo.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Okay. In the memo Tracy's referring to is dated June 8th, 2020, and it is to the Yarmouth Board of Selectmen and Daniel Knappich, Town Administrator, from Jeffrey Colby, DPW Director. Do we have any further discussion before we vote on this?
I had asked some questions and I have not had answers to those questions.
Okay, do you want to repeat what those questions were, Norm, for the benefit of the public?
All right. Well, the questions were, are the 3 items capital items that have been already completed, and are they individual invoices for these amounts?
The short answer to that is yes, they are completed projects, and they were multiple invoices that total those amounts. Those were pretty significant projects, so we might get an invoice at a 25% completion, at a 50% completion, and that at 100% completion. So there's multiple invoices that total these exact amounts for those specific projects.
So these are all expended during the current fiscal year?
Correct.
And why were they these are these things that would normally be capital expenditures that go through the capital committee?
The capital committee does get a list of capital items that the septic facility is planning to do within a given year. We do that as part of the budget development process. Septic has, over the last few years, done this a little bit differently since it's more of an industrial facility, and most of these projects are pump related or industrial equipment related, like the UV or the SCADA. So there is a $200,000 capital line item within the operating budget, and the capital budget committee gets a breakdown of what that is anticipated to cover. And during the year, sometimes there's changes. And so as part of the next year's budget process, we give them a full report of what actually was expended for the previous year.
So how do these relate to that 200,000 that's already been appropriated, already been set aside?
These are items that would be charged against that line item in the operating budget.
Well, why would we then charge them to the reserve?
To free up capacity within the expense budget in order to cover additional costs related to the sludge disposal that I mentioned previously.
I guess I still don't understand. If these were part of the 200,000 that was previously authorized, why would we be approving those again for a charge to the reserve? Why wouldn't we simply just charge these to the $200,000 expense line?
They were, but this, if we move them to the reserve fund for the charges, it frees up that $100,000 total, including the chiller charge, to be used for other expenses within the operating budget to get us to town meeting in order to replenish those operating expenses.
I don't agree with the accounting. I think all we're doing is flip-flopping money around. I'm not really sure what this all accomplishes. I mean, what other items have been charged to the $200,000 reserve for the year?
There's some other pump projects. There are a few other capital projects that were charged to that, but the bottom line is we didn't fully expend that. Some of that 200,000, because it's all within the expense line of the operating budget, was used to cover overages and other expense lines. That's typical in all the budgets that we deal with when we have one line item that's over and another line item that's under. And it is indeed moving funds around, but that's a tool available to us. What I didn't mention was our finance team did talk to the state DOR about different opportunities we have in order to cover this expense increase. And this particular use of the septage reserve is about the only opportunity we have in order to cover those costs. It's an allowable use of those funds according to DOR, and we just don't have any other mechanisms available to us before we get to town meeting.
So what, if these get charged to this reserve, then how much is going to be unspent in the $200,000 budget?
The total of the numbers you have before you, which is almost $100,000, including the chiller project. So the chiller project, the UV, SCADA, and the pump upgrades would be just shy of $100,000 that would be freed up in the operating budget.
So the $200,000 will be, instead of 200,000 for the year, will be 100,000. So what are you going to do? How are you going to transfer items? I guess I don't understand the accounting. So you're going to rename some items and charge them to the $200,000 capital account?
No, the $200,000 capital line item is within the operating budget, and these projects are already credited against that. So what we would do is move those into the septage reserve fund, freeing up $100,000 within the operating budget to cover the extra costs associated with sludge disposal.
Okay. I mean, why wouldn't the extra cost of sludge disposal just end up as a deficit that would have to be covered by vote at town meeting?
Because we don't have approval at town meeting to expend more than has been previously approved. We can't spend more than they've approved, which we hope they approve the needed expense on June 22nd. But the reason we have town meeting much earlier than we do this year was to cover well in advance some of those anticipated overages. But this year being so late in the process, we don't have town meeting's approval to spend any more than they've already approved back last spring.
So this town meeting, week and a half from now, is not going to include a vote?
There will be a need for a vote at town meeting on June 22nd to get us through to June 30th. We're literally going week by week on our expenses here. And we'll need a vote on June 22nd in order to get us through to June 30th for the extra additional items that need to be covered as well. And that's anticipated at this point to be approximately $50,000 in addition to these numbers that we would need at June 22nd. We'll have a better idea of what that is on June 22nd when Article 1 is moved, but that's what's anticipated approximately at this time to get us through the end of the fiscal year.
Anything else, Norm?
No, I don't have anything else.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. I'll take a roll call vote. Norm?
Nay.
Mark?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
I'll vote aye as well. That passes by a vote of 3-1.
Thank you.
You can't go out and change accounting methods and policies and procedures continually just to justify spending.
7:30 item, COVID-19 updates and operations, fiscal 20 budget impact is the first item.
Yeah, there's nothing to report right now on that item, so I'd like to move to 2A and B, although I did not see in your packet, or at least it's not in my packet, the driving range plan from Bayberry Hills. Do you have that, Kyle, in what you've got for information on the Zoom?
For the driving range, I think I do. Let me just pull it up.
Yeah, I don't have it in my paper packet.
Is this what you were referring to, Dan?
Yes, for some reason, I don't have that doc. So in anticipation that we're in now phase 2, we wanted to get this document in front of you as it relates so that we'd be ready for opening, so that you know what we're doing to address that. I'm not sure if Scott's on the call or on the Zoom meeting.
I just have to stop sharing so I can bring people in. Scott is not on the call.
Okay. Essentially, though, the way these are handled, as you know, when there's like overarching guidance that comes from a trader association or the state, we incorporate that into our policies and procedures as it relates to safety here in this, and that's no different with this particular plan.
Who's gonna do the shark response plan?
On the shark response plan, that's a document that Carl and Amy and Pat and Jeff had been working on, and the latest iteration, Amy and Carl had a fair amount for that, and I'm not sure if they're available tonight as well.
Okay,
This is a continuation of work that was done last year. I do see Amy here, so.
yeah, we are a half an hour early of when the time that these were scheduled for.
Right.
They're both on.
If you'd like, we can go to phase 2 business opening plans, or do we need anybody for that?
Well, for that one, I've asked town council to join us, and I did text him through the meeting that we were early, so.
Okay.
I'm not sure, Kyle, is Amy active? Is she?
There's
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got Amy and Carl.
Okay, so if you wanted to go down that road, that's fine.
All right. Amy, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep. Carl, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Very good. I guess we're gonna talk about sharks. Shark response plan. Things aren't bad enough. You have to bring this to us.
Well, the one plus is I don't believe they carry COVID-19.
Yeah.
So,
Virus doesn't get you, maybe the sharks will, who knows?
right. What you have before you
Who wants
is,
to start off with the plan? Are you gonna do that, Carl?
I can start off.
Go ahead.
What you have before you is the final draft of the shark sighting and shark activity policy. We pulled the first draft together last June and operated under it for the summer. We pulled in information from other shark plans from other communities, took what we felt would work best in Yarmouth. We worked with this through the summer. We had 10 responses last summer to potential sightings. Last summer was very unique in Lewis Bay, where we had a significant population of menhaden, a bait fish. We typically see sandbar tiger sharks and sandbar sharks from time to time, but that managed to bring some sandbar sharks in to feed on these menhaden. So it was gave us some great practice to go out, identify, find what the people had seen. let me back up a little bit. The sandbar tiger sharks and the sandbar sharks may get to, 6 to 8 feet. We don't usually see that size up here. This is more of a nursery stock. So anything from 4 to 5 feet. But when people see them, they get concerned. So we had some great exercises, both off the south side beaches with dolphins, seals, and sea duck sightings that were misidentified and were ultimately confirmed by Harbor Patrol and DNR staff and beach staff on shore. So what we present to you this evening is a worked out plan, something that is workable and has served us well through last summer. And we just did a few minor tweaks to it this winter. The important thing is to be able to start doing the training with our seasonal staff as soon as possible as the season is upon us.
Hey, Amy?
Yeah, I mean, as Carl stated, we kind of acted under this last summer. We didn't really have to reinvent the wheel since pretty much sharks have been a part of the beaches now for the last couple years. So, the big thing is we wanted to get this up and going so we can actually use our flag system this summer and get the staff trained as they do start this weekend. And so we wanted time to make sure everyone's on the same page, get our flags ready to go in case of a shark event or occurrence.
How are we doing with lifeguards so far, Amy?
We're doing great. It's one of those positive, if you want to call it, reasons from COVID. We actually have all of our, I would say 98% of our staff has returned. Unfortunately for them, it's because they've lost out on internships and jobs. But for the summer, we are very veteran heavy. So it'll be for us a little bit easier this summer.
How about numbers? Do you have any rough estimates of?
Yeah, right now we're sitting at about 35, 36 guards, which is where we were at last year. I think last year we were at about 36, 37. We're just finishing our schedule to see if we need to bring anyone else on.
Okay.
Great.
Does anybody from the board have any questions or comments they would like to address to either Carl or Amy?
I have a question just about the buoy. I know there was some funding at one point in time. Where are we at with that?
We do have a buoy that I received a monitoring beacon from the Division of Marine Fisheries that we deployed out off of Great Island. We did not have any hits this past summer, but it's back out there and ready to go. The next shark beacon or tag system is located over in Harwich on their fish reef. And I believe they did get a hit 2 or 3 years ago, but they're very close to Monomoy there, and that's why they thought they took a hit. But it is the ocean, and sharks can be anywhere.
Do we have a plan to put one on the north side at all, or additional?
There are 5 along the north side. There is one outside of Barnstable Harbor.
Okay.
As you know, we've got extensive tidal flats out there. And, for these buoys to work well, we like to have, 25 to 50 feet of water. And that's the only way we can get any significant waters to go out that far to the one that's off of Barnstable, or else we'll be high and dry through part of the time.
Are they good about communicating? You think about the drones and the different aircraft that are around the Cape, and sometimes you hear about whether, you know, that they've had some type of sighting. Is there good communication down to people really on the ground at the beach at those times?
Well, the key is these buoys are static buoys, so they're not active. So we don't get a ping when something goes past it immediately. We have to go out and download the data off of these buoys.
Right, I'm talking more like when there's aircraft or there's marine vessels out there that have spottings. Is there a line of communication that goes back to our people on the ground that communicates that spotting to them in real time? Is there a way for that information to be filtered and given to the people who need it quickly?
Yes, they do have the spotting planes, and there's a routine system that they funnel information down. More effectively out off the outer Cape is where most of it's being done, as well as we do get reports from mariners of what they think they saw for us to, go check out. And as soon as you can see within the plan, as soon as we get notification, we go down the notification tree and we get resources deployed ASAP.
Oh, can you quickly run down what happens if there's a confirmed sighting?
Sure.
What the response would be after the notification goes out?
Yeah, we have a couple of different scenarios here, but as far as the shark activity, a call will come in. It could be from the general public, it could be from the beaches. Everything is funneled through the fire department for the initial calls, as well as to the natural resource department. On our frequency, we will contact the beaches if they're not the ones that reported it to us, as well as our harbor patrol vessels to get out into those areas, and DNR staff from shore to go out and survey the shoreline as well. If we have a confirmed sighting, then that is radioed in and the flag system goes into action. If it's unconfirmed, we spend quite a bit of time in the area trying to confirm what it could have been. Like I said, last summer we had some dolphin sightings, sea ducks, seals, and those things, and we were able to identify those and be able to speak to the reporting party to kind of point those out to them. Is that what you saw? And we've been able to close some of those. Now, if there is a shark attack, the beaches will be closed in the proximity of the attack. Fire and police will be brought in for the immediate response. Lifeguards will render aid when the victim comes to shore. We'll have boats in the area to pick up the victim if bystanders haven't already brought the victim to shore. And then that process will be followed through with advanced medical care through the EMS and fire department. The flags will stay in place as per the designated period of time. And then we'll start to de-escalate this situation after that observed period of time.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments of either Amy or Carl? Mark?
Other than just to thank them both. I know these are challenging circumstances, but appreciate all the hard work. Thank you.
Norm?
No specifics. What are we being asked to do at this point?
Well, there's a policy. We'd like to have the board endorse and approve the policy that's been generated.
Do I have a motion on the policy approval?
Where is
So-
that?
It's in the packet.
Yeah, I can't get both up on the screen.
I'll second that. Tracy moved it, so I'll second it.
Okay. So is the policy all of what we have in the?
No, it's the first part of it's the policy. It's the shark sighting and shark attack policy, and then it has the standard operating procedures for beach staff that implement the policy, if you will. That starts on page 11.
So the policy starts on page 11?
No, policy starts on page 1, and the SOP for beach staff and responders starts on page 11.
Okay.
You still have the signage this year? The same
Yep.
sign?
Same.
Does everybody have the first 11 pages, the first 10 pages? My.
Can you
packet
go,
seems to start
Kyle,
at
that's
11.
page 11, I think, Kyle. Can you go back?
Is there anything prior to page 11?
It's more informative than a policy, but
It explains what the town staff are going to do based on the research they've done on this particular topic.
So the policy is this entire document?
No, the policy is the first 10 pages. Starting on page 11 is the operating procedures that the staff follow in the event that there's a shark sighting.
All right, what, has this gone through legal counsel?
Well, this was worked on amongst all the different Cape communities last year and this year, but we did not put this through specifically to legal counsel.
I guess I'm concerned about a policy statement by the board that implies that these policies are adequate to protect people when, and what kind of legal position that puts us in for liability to people that might be harmed. You know, I understand we have a, you know, kind of a best efforts sort of thing, and you know, we've done an awful lot of work, obviously, in putting this together. But that's a little bit different from having the board stamp approval and say this is the policy, and then someone comes along, gets killed, and says, hey, you didn't. The nearest relative says, hey, you didn't have this in your policy. You know,
or they could say we don't have a policy at all.
well, you know, why do we need to have a policy?
This was a heavily debated topic last year, if you recall, and some towns got differing advice to the point where some were of the advice that we shouldn't acknowledge it at all, and others had indicated that we should go with some signage and some basic information as it relates. In this community last year, when we presented this, the board decided to go with the signage that was available. That's presently predicated inside the plan here. I know Jay hasn't seen this, but I mean, this is, there's no easy right answer on this particular topic. And that was definitely on display last summer when this came up, particularly in the Outer Cape towns. But perhaps Jay might want to say something as it relates to this particular situation.
I don't seem to have the first 10 pages in my hard copy. I start on page 11, I think, but I can find it, I think. Yeah, I don't have the first 10. I started on 11, and
Yeah,
even
no,
on
no,
the,
that's fine. You can have that one. Yeah,
thank you.
I didn't have the other one, but I had that.
Did you, other selectmen, get the first 10 pages in your packet, or did it start on page 11?
No, I got them.
You got the first
Me too.
10 too?
Yeah,
All right.
and I'm fine with it. I think it's a lot of good work. It's good to have, and I think it's good that we bless it. I'm comfortable if the will of the board is to bless it, subject to council, just to move it along, subject to council's review. And then we can ratify whatever changes he might suggest, but I think.
Yeah, okay.
I would be helpful to, I think it'd be helpful.
I
to just
guess
move it
11
along.
starts with an actual procedure. So I guess we could ask him as to the advisability of approving a policy. Norm has a legitimate concern. Let's see what Jay thinks about it. Is it better to have one or not have one? I don't know.
It looks
I
to me
can
more like
see
it's
the
more
minuses both ways. All right. So when we get them on, we'll come back to that. How's that? So anything further from Amy or Carl?
I'm all set. Thank you.
No, all set. We would just, we would just like to be able to train them and implement the policy, as quickly as possible so that we have enough time to, explain it to the staff. So.
Yeah, I don't think Norm's concern is whether you can communicate it to the staff or not. He's just more concerned about if it's raised to the status of a possible, a policy, whether or not that could harm the town some way liability wise, if one of those procedures was not followed in a particular circumstance.
Understood.
But Mr. Chairman, the reality is that there has to be some guidance to staff on what to do, particularly with the season coming upon us and all these new people coming in. It would be a huge mistake not to provide any guidance in a document like this. So I think the sooner we get this before council to review it, the better. A lot of work's
I'm
gone
told
into
by
it.
Kyle, not Carl, that town council's on. I don't think he's probably seen this, but we can talk to him generally. Jay, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, very good. We're looking at a procedure relating to sharks, and the first part of it, and I realize you probably don't have the document in front of you, is a policy, and Natural Resources and Recreation are looking for us to approve the policy portion of this. And just a general question came up. Is it Selectman Holcomb raised the concern that, well, if we adopt this as a formal policy, could it expose the town to liability in a particular situation if one of these procedures were not followed? Is it better to have maybe general guidance as opposed to a policy? Adopting a formal policy in this area, does it put us at risk?
So we looked at some issues last year, as I recall, regarding signage, and we came down on the side that, given some of the immunities to the town, as that there was likely little to no liability from what we eventually chose in terms of signage. Similarly here, I think a policy, and I haven't reviewed it, a policy to identify and track, or if that's what a lot of this is, because I think Carl talking maybe about that, probably doesn't give me much in the way of concern. I'm happy to dredge up our research from last year and apply it to this current policy. My guess is it's probably fine. It's not making promises or directing people to do anything else. So I think it's probably okay, but we can jump on it in the morning. Dan can send it to me or someone else. I know it's in your agenda packet too. So we could probably take a look at it and scrub it, but you're probably on pretty firm ground in terms of having the requisite immunity from just adopting a policy that's aimed to help.
Yeah, part of that speaks of town staff filling out shark activity reports. Training, staff training by natural resources, harbor master and recreation staff, that they'll be trained by the Division of Marine Fisheries about identifying white sharks. All town staff that will be involved in responding to shark sightings or bites will need to be familiar with this training and supplies and equipment, first aid, boats, emergency services, communications. It's more than just general language. It really, it's kind of in my opinion, kind of an action plan, really.
Yeah, I mean, calling something a policy doesn't necessarily make it non-binding in a way that insulates you from suit, Mike. As you know, you can't just call it something.
Right.
Mere training to react to potential sightings, though, I'm not sure if that creates an affirmative duty that would sound in negligence or that kind of tort liability that we would face. But again, we'll take a look at it and happy to do it. I think we came to a good place in it last year and decided to have fairly robust, maybe not the most robust signage on the Cape, but certainly to respond to some of the concerns by having common sense signage. And we felt there was no risk or liability. There are other elements to this too, and that's the recreational liability aspects of what we're doing. And there's absolute immunity to that in most respects in terms of liability from public property. So we'll take a look at it. Dan just emailed it to me. We'll get on it in the morning. You should have some of our thoughts by your next meeting, if not before.
Yeah, another alternative would be, and I'm just thinking out loud, is to change the word policy to manual. And
I don't think that it's helpful to have terms that mean what they say and say what they mean, but ultimately, from a lawyer's perspective, calling it one thing is only part of it. It's what's in it that really matters at the end of the day. Nothing can ever.
well, I agree, but I'm wondering if it more fits that description than it does a policy.
Yeah, again, I would recommend doing anything that might take a stigma away from something, but from a lawyer's perspective, we're more concerned about the meat of it, and that's probably what we'll be responding to.
Yeah, sure.
Ethics are important for this, don't get me wrong, but from a hard and fast liability perspective, we're going to be looking at the protocols and the creation of a duty that people might have to citizens or visitors or boaters or anything else like that.
Okay. All right, so you'll do that and maybe send us an email on that?
You got it.
Okay, thank you.
I'm concerned that we might want some sort of statement with regard to representations, or that this is not a representation, that these policies and procedures are 100% complete, or that these are meant to create a level of responsibility on the part of the town. I just very concerned about having, just
Yeah, I mean, I'm not unconcerned about anything when we're talking about advising people as something that has obvious issues. So we'll take a good long look at it and give our recommendations if we think there should be changes or where you may go from there.
You know, like Norm says, maybe just some general language as to what the extent of this document is, what it's intended to do, and what its limitations are. That may be a way of resolving the concern.
Disclaimers and releases, swim at your own risk, all those caveats that we put on the signage and everything else like that, it certainly should carry over. All of that should be that, nothing herein shall be construed as a replacement for swimming in ocean waters is a necessarily risky business. I don't want to call it that per se, but we find the right kind of caveats for that.
yeah, we
and
love
possibly
notwithstandings.
and possibly the term provisional, which is, present, but to be altered further forward, might be a way that we could at least utilize it to train the staff now before they get into chairs this weekend.
We gotta give them something.
That's kind of what I'm saying. So you got to give them something. So provisional covers you.
Right.
We know that it's going to be altered, and it would give them an opportunity to utilize this document for a training document and then be able to augment it as we have further information. Considering we've never had a shark issue here in Yarmouth, I think provisional would protect us and not expose us to great liability.
I have no problem with it being used for a training document while we're waiting for an opinion of town council as to what status it should be given.
So we'll get right on it. If I could give any basic guidance or make people feel better about it before the weekend, we'll certainly do that.
Okay, thank you.
The next item should be the temporary outdoor restaurant dining service and alcohol extension of premise application that the staff's been working on. Karen Green should be in the audience for that.
Is Karen there?
I'm here. Can
Hi,
you?
Karen.
Hi, how are you?
Good. So I can hear you well. I hope you can hear us.
I can.
Okay. You want to give us an overview of the phase 2 business opening plans?
Sure, I'll give you a rundown. You have a memo in your packet with a few items that are included.
Yeah.
There is a cover memo that just describes everything I'm about to tell you. We have a draft policy that's 2 parts. So Kyle, if you can scroll to the policy, that would be great. So there's 2 policies up a page that we would ask for the board's consideration. The first is relative to outdoor seating, and that would authorize the building commissioner to make the necessary zoning determinations in order to accommodate various outdoor seating scenarios. There's a question within the policy whether or not you waive the associated fees with the and/or whether you'd like to.
Excuse me, Karen, Mr. Chairman, there's some noise in the background that's very, very disruptive.
Yeah.
Distracting. Can we deal with that? Kyle, can you mute everybody else?
Here we go. Thank you.
Thank you. That was
Thank you.
very difficult.
I think Kyle got on with whoever the culprit was. Okay.
So I'll go back to the outdoor seating. So there's 2 policies here that we'd like you to vote. The first is to authorize the board, the building commissioner to make the relevant zoning determinations to accommodate outdoor dining in town so that people can set up tables outside. He may or may not condition it, his decision. And the question that we had for you all that's highlighted there in yellow is whether or not you'd like to waive associated fees with the application and or fees associated with tent permits. Mark, I know Mark's on the call. It might be a nice way to further incentivize folks and try to help get things moving. The second policy, and both of these are allowable per the governor's executive order number 35 that was issued just last week. The way we have presented the policy to you here for alcohol would take the licensing authority and assign it to the Board of Selectmen rather than going through the ABCC. Again, we have the question here for you, whether or not you'd like to waive associated fees with those applications. Those fees are normally, I think, $105 and would generally cover the legal advertisements and abutter notifications, which are not required through this policy and through this executive order. I want to stop there for 1 second because Dan and I were speaking with Jay Tallerman this afternoon, and I know Jay's on the call as well. And so the way that we've drafted this policy, it would give the authority, you know, you don't have to go to the ABCC to change your premise license, and the Board of Selectmen could just issue the license. The conversation we had just this afternoon that the board may want to consider is whether or not you want to further delegate that authority, perhaps to one member of the Board of Selectmen.
Can we delegate it to the town administrator?
I think that you could delegate it to whomever you like. And
well, I think other towns are doing that in the matter of time. I think we need to find every way we can make this happen as fast as possible.
So, and the benefit there is that if you delegate it to one person, you do not need even to advertise the public meeting. So there's no 48-hour requirement to adhere to.
Right.
So the other items that we put in the package for your consideration, and it's really the policy that we need you to vote. We put in, just for your information, the application forms that we would use, and these were developed by staff through a lot of streamlining between building department. Kathy Williams was a big help, and Linda Hill participated as well. And we consolidated the application, which is the form that Kyle has up on the screen, to collect the pertinent information. And then there's two different forms that follow. That would be the form of approval that would be issued once the application is reviewed. This is the temporary alteration of premise. This would get clocked in with the town clerk and then sent up to the ABCC just to keep them in the loop as is required. The second form, again, we'd clock it in with the town clerk, but this is the zoning determination. And it kind of just, it would outline, you know, it's approved, what the comments and conditions are, whether or not there's other inspections required. And it outlines, you can see the section there for waiving different pieces of zoning, temporary zoning waivers authorized. And then there's another area for just denied. But anyways, but that's the packet. But I'd ask for your consideration on those two policies and feedback on the fees as well, so that we can finalize the policy.
I have a couple questions.
Good, Tracy.
Well, I don't understand why this would not be appealable to some full board. It says the building commission's decision is final and may not be appealed. Is that even allowed?
You want me to answer that?
Please,
I'll be
Jay,
happy
thank you.
to. So they didn't include an appellate process, and it doesn't fit within any kind of appellate process. So we didn't specify that there would be an appeal route. You could certainly build in an appellate process if you wanted, where they could appeal it to the Board of Selectmen. If you wanted, you can do that. If we don't include an appellate process, then they still can get it reviewed. The remedy there would be in an action in the nature of certiorari, where they'd have to go to court to do that. So that's possible. By the time they get around to it, it would probably be around the time the order would expire anyway. So I'm not sure how practical that would be, but more than that, it's hard to fathom a situation where an appeal would be meritorious, at least in the courts, because of the kind of unbridled discretion that the town has to grant or not grant relief. Certainly, if there is an appeal from a decision by Mark or someone else, or whatever body is making decisions under zoning or the liquor side of this to the select board could make, in addition to kind of pseudo-legal determinations, they can make equitable decisions that are different on the merits than the designated entity or Mark would make. So you have that discretion if you want. It adds more process. We would have to develop more forms for that.
Well, I mean, let's hope that we wouldn't need that, but in case that business feels that they need to appeal a decision, I think that that should be availed to them and not having to go to court. So I'd be in favor of saying that you could appeal it to the Board of Selectmen.
We could do that.
Is there, my other concern here is, well, there's a couple of things. As far as the fees, I'm very much in favor of waiving the fees at this point in time. I think they're already struggling enough and we need to keep the expenses down. What people should know is all of these provisions that are on here, it's going to be expensive for them to even be able to, purchase all of the items that they need to go outside if they haven't already, and the blockages and the coverings and the tents or what have you. So I think we need to be cognizant of that. The other thing that I don't see anywhere is a timeline. I think it's very, very important that this not sit on somebody's desk. I also believe that we should give the authority to the town administrator, but I think that we should mandate that it's acted upon within a certain amount of time.
I'd like to add a comment on at this point. I agree with Tracy, there shouldn't be any additional fees. And with regard, I had jotted down a note that about the presumption upon application that it's acceptable. Because I think that gets to the timing issue. Again, we're trying to use a very limited number of town employees in this process, and spreading everybody thin. I think we need to have a presumption that the applications are complete from when they're filed, and that the review process, that they're subject only to a review process, not to further approval. So what that would do is allow the restaurant to move ahead with its plans on the assumption that their plans are being accepted. And then the approval process, the actual signature sign off on those would occur, but it could occur a day later, or 2 days, 5 days, 3 weeks. But the businesses would not be waiting for some extended period of time based upon a whole bunch of applications being piled up. So they can get moving on it. The other thing in this alcohol section, it talks about a public hearing. Well, my God, we're going to have, how many applications are we going to have for public hearings? It's going to take us an hour and a half to read all the public hearing notices. That just doesn't seem right.
Norm, where do you see public hearing?
It's
Because
in the alcohol
my
section.
understanding, we've said in the policy,
Can you put it on the screen again?
yeah, and I think the policy that was in the packet was with the authority delegated just to the Board of Selectmen. And so that would require a public meeting. That's with the 48-hour notice. But
hold on, it's page 2. Page 2. The Yarmouth Board of Selectmen as local licensing authority shall review and act on the application to permit the outdoor sale of alcoholic beverages. Application shall be considered by the Board of Selectmen at a public meeting that is duly noticed.
And that was
So
just that was the 48-hour regular public notice.
That was the guidance that we were under when this first came out last week. Further from that, and perhaps the chairman can add to this, there was some communication to different town councils and individuals from ABCC's legal counsel as it relates to what their viewpoint on that provision was. And that was when they talked about to expedite this, to delegate it to a member of the board or somebody else in the staff level, such that you could dispense with that 48-hour provision. If that's
48 hours was just for the open meeting law.
That's correct. But that's my understanding of the conversations that were had, Jay and Mike. Is that correct?
Well, I talked to Jay briefly about this afternoon. It was a very short conversation. My understanding of it is that there are two different viewpoints as to what the options are. Jay had some concerns about whether the board could delegate a statutory obligation over a liquor license to somebody other than a member of the board. I kind of agree with that. However, when they were talking to the legal counsel, Ralph Sacramone, from the ABCC, they're out of the picture now. So I guess he said that, if we or any board delegated that authority out, it wouldn't be a big deal to him.
Well, I've had this. My
Jay?
feeling would be that at least that there would be an individual, and we could be the appeal process in that as well.
Well, again, you start building up layers of appeals, even a week or 2 weeks can be catastrophic to businesses that are.
Absolutely. And I hope it's always a yes and we don't have to worry about it. But
I mean, it would take some, well, I mean, there's going to be somebody out there that's going to try to game the system and put some monstrosity on their property that's objectionable, probably from a zoning standpoint or a neighborhood standpoint or anything like that. I don't think you're going to probably give everybody everything they're looking for. The first determination that's going to be critical is the building inspector to look at the property, look at the zoning, look at where it's located, and make a determination as to its acceptability. And then the licensing really is kind of, I think, going to piggyback that.
How is Mark going to do all that?
I don't know. It's a good question. Is Mark on?
I'm on.
Mark, how are you going to do all that?
I'm doing it now. So in regards to permits issued by right, by people just applying and it's granted, that's not going to fly.
No.
I've already had one application or somebody requesting a permit who wanted to put it in the state layout. You can't automatically do that because I will make you move it. So and then who's the bad guy? So I went to the site, I met with the person, we found a suitable location based on where their underground structures were as well. They have septic systems and grease traps and everything underground. We want to make sure that we identify where those are. You don't want people driving those big stakes into their septic system, because that's going to put them out of business until it's repaired. So I think now I've done 9 or 10 of these reviews. Some of them don't require tents. They just want to have outdoor seating. So I don't need to do any inspection there, you know, provided they send me a diagram of where the seating is located. We can't block access to the fire department, and Bruce Murphy and the health department have to approve its location. He can't be in the dirt, basically. So they're letting him locate seats in the grass. They're letting him locate seats in the parking area. But I need to review the parking as well. So that's another reason why I need those applications. But they're going out the door as quick as we get them. We're not holding them. I have no reason to sit on anybody's permit.
Where do you anticipate the average turnaround time to be, assuming there aren't any objections?
Well, right now we've also got an influx of people coming into town, and those people are taking up a lot of my time with their written complaints and their phone call complaints. So I'm trying to direct them immediately to the people who are going to review, such as the health department and the fire department, and my staff, if they're going to be issuing any permits. And we just make sure that we have the appropriate information on the application, such as where the tent's going to be located, how many seats they're going to have, what's the distance between tables, and will they be blocking any fire department access to the building.
Can I ask a question about number 11 on the provision about the dumpster being located 50 feet and have screening? Where did some of these come from? Just out of curiosity.
The 50 feet, I believe, comes from the health regulations.
I think
The
you're
Board
right.
of Health. Say that again?
It's health, Tracy.
The Board of Health requires screening. It doesn't require screening now?
If they're not eating outside, they don't need to screen it.
Okay. So
Apparently.
that's a regulation already.
I believe so.
We're not putting any new regulations in these provisions, just out of
No,
curiosity.
we've not created any as far as the building department goes. I'm trying to streamline everything. Actually, I just need to be able to get this done for people. And I've already been out to numerous sites. My staff has been De Palma's, Oliver's. I'm waiting for you to give me the approval to give variances myself so that I can let Jerry Manning put his tent up where he needs to, and it needs a variance in order to do that. I would like to be the person to grant it, providing the fire department's okay with it. So I just need some, I need a little bit of things to get out of the way so I can get to work and get this stuff done. So, but I need some parameters for people to follow so that we have some guidelines. And I've shown this to a few people out there. Some of the business owners out there, I've been over this application line by line. So far, I've had no negative feedback. They thought it was reasonable, and they understand why we need this information.
What further materials would you be developing? In this policy, it's asking us to authorize you to develop application materials. Is it something additional to what we're looking at in this packet?
No, it's in the packet.
Okay.
I don't need anything extra.
Okay.
And then if there will be a tent, which not everybody is requesting a permit, I've already forwarded the link to the town website, which indicates where all of the site plans are located. So the tent guy can go locate those underground structures and the property lines. The tent guys have that. I sent them the link, and they appreciated that. So now they know where to go looking for it when they come to apply. That's one less thing that I need to respond to them with. It seems to be going pretty good so far, but with this document allowing me to grant variances, it's going to help. It's going to help speed the process up.
Well, I move we authorize him to make those zoning determinations on our behalf. I would like the Board of Selectmen to be the appeal process, but I think in the matter of time, we need to allow him to be able to make these approvals. I would also like to make sure that they're done within a certain amount of time so that nothing's lingering. Mark, I know you're trying, but by me saying that, I'm saying that if we need to get extra help, or maybe you can utilize some staff from other departments or somehow to be able to get this done as quickly as possible. I know you must be straight out with everything you guys have to do in there, but I think our businesses really are looking to us to be able to move this along as quick as possible. So whatever we could do to help you with that, I think we should be doing.
Well, the good news is that all the hotels are done that were eligible to, or needed to be done. They're done. We made sure to take care of them right away. The interior of the restaurants are done. I don't need to go do those. I've asked them to, my guys to inspect those already. So we've been prepared for the last couple of months. The outdoor seating thing is kind of a shock, but I can't really have somebody who's not qualified in accordance with the building code go and inspect the safety of a tent or the fire department. We're actually on it. We're doing a very good job. We've kind of, we're still doing building inspections. We've issued well over 950 permits since this whole thing began. So, those guys are looking for their inspections, including the DPW Foundation is underway. We're managing very well. There's Brad, Tim, and myself. I've been out to several sites in the past few days, and it seems to be going pretty good. So there hasn't been any lag time, a day or two tops. But I'm hesitant to put any deadline. This is granted in 48 hours because, if I get sick, I'm sick, and that's it. There's nothing I can do about it. We can't automatically grant people permits that it might not be a safe situation. So we're on it. We're doing a good job, in my opinion.
No doubt, Mark. I'm not questioning that, believe me, but
so we're trying to keep ahead of it.
These business owners are really clinging right now for a decision. So.
Oh yeah, I got it. We're on it. We're cruising. As soon as I get the application, it starts the process. So, there hasn't been any lag time. I'm more involved with these than any other permits, where I let my staff handle building permits and certificates of inspection for liquor, things like that. We're not, I don't handle the liquor except for doing the inspection. The alcohol piece of it goes through the Board of Selectmen, as you're aware. So I think we're primed and ready to go. My guys are chomping at the bit. So whatever you guys decide works for us. Permit, fees or not, it's up to you guys. There's a lot of people with their fingers in the pie that are trying to get this thing done for us.
Well, I did make a motion to authorize Mark to make that decision, with the Board of Selectmen being the appeal and not charging fees associated with outdoor seating.
I think the only problem I can see with the motion is the appeal. I think in theory it's good, but like I said, even if it takes a week or 2 weeks to get a hearing,
it's better than the lawsuit. I mean, you're gonna
no,
make
it is because a lawsuit's
court.
very impractical. You're right. It is better than a lawsuit.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, so far, there's been the variance issue is not that big of a deal. And for me to show up on the site and to walk through the site with people and come up with a reasonable approach to getting the job done that they need to get done, I've not had an issue with that. There's not been any problems. And once I show them why they can't do it, people have accepted it, and we found an alternative measure to move the project forward. So I'm really not too concerned about the variance issue, but you guys, if you want to be the hearings officers or the appeals process through the Board of Selectmen, I'm fine with that too. I'm okay with it.
Under normal circumstances, for due process, I'd be screaming for an appeal, but time is of the essence here in terms of a business's ability to make any, comeback with outdoor dining. A week, 2 weeks can be potentially a significant financial loss while they're waiting for us. I think Mark knows what our position is, and that we would like him to quickly and efficiently carry out his duties on behalf, in lieu of the Board of Appeals. and work with businesses and get them up and running ASAP. And I have confidence he'll do that. Again, I don't have a problem per se with the appeal process, Tracy. I just wonder if it's practical.
Well, I have all the confidence in Mark as well, and I know he'll work with them and, you know, do the best he can to work with them. I'm just saying that I personally don't feel that if it's no and it can't be worked out, I think, you know, a week potentially for us to hear it would be a lot better than saying, hey, take me to court.
Okay, so I guess
That's
what you
just
have to have then is an appeal period. How much time does someone who does not get what they want, how much time do they have to file an appeal? How do they do it? It's got to be in writing, I suppose.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I'll help them fill out the appeal application.
What do you say?
I'll help them fill out the appeal application.
I'm sure you will. I have no doubt about that. You probably
Yeah.
represent them at the appeal too.
No, sir, I will not appear.
And then, you know, then I guess the board has to convene, get at least 3 members to hear the appeal. You'd probably have to have at least 48 hours to notice an appeal under the open meeting law. And then you'd have to render a decision.
8 o'clock.
Probably.
Nobody else is, if everybody else is fine with that, I'm fine with it. I just want to move this along. I'm not trying to hold it up and make it more difficult. I'm trying to make it
No,
easier.
but I'm simply saying to you, if you say it's subject to an appeal, that's not enough. You have to tell us what the appeal process is going to be.
Well, I think that they need to develop it in part of whatever it is, but I'm just afraid that, you know, 2 weeks from now, we're going to hear one of our businesses is going out of business because they couldn't make it work. And we're going to be sitting here with nothing. We can't do anything to help them. So.
Is Jay still with us?
Am.
Can you comment on the issue of having an appeal process as part of part 1, the outdoor seating that we've been talking about?
So I don't have a problem with it. And I mean, you raised some practical concerns given the open meeting law. One thing you could do is you can have an appeal to a single person. Then you could have a quick standard, so you don't have to do it through a meeting. It could be reviewable by a single designee of the select board, or it could be reviewable by Dan, so that you could avoid that. You could have it 3 days to file an appeal, and then it would be that much less time for a single person to do it. So it's conceivable, and you know, and so it's all. Again, those will probably be more equitable decisions than they will be technical decisions, but that's fine too. So I don't want to get too much into the substance. In some ways, we put a hard line on it final so that people would get more assuredness earlier, and you wouldn't be deluged with everyone who didn't get an extra table. Or an extra 3 feet of sidewalk, because we wanted to get people in and out the door quickly. But an appeal is certainly a reasonable thing to do, and we could streamline it so a decision could be turned around potentially in a week if it was done on a staff level. Be difficult to do it in a week if it was the whole select board.
Okay. Well, Tracy, Norm, Mark, do you want to have an appeal process and do it on a staff level? And if so, who would you want the appeal to be to a town administrator or to a member of the Board of Selectmen?
I think the licensing chair would be fine with me.
Okay. In a 3-day, they have to file the notice of appeal within 3 days.
I think that's perfectly fine. They want to get on with business. I don't think they're going to be hanging around.
All right. Is that okay with Norm and Mark? Norm?
Yeah, I think we have to have an appeal process. I'm not thrilled with the whole thing at this stage in any case, but you know, I just, as I said, I would we're dealing with existing businesses that have licenses already to operate.
Mm-hmm.
My assumption and presumption is that they're going to do their level best, and I'm rather I'm inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt in advance. Now, you know, that's going on the assumption that they know what the requirements are, and you know, so I guess you know, if and you know what Mark is saying is we can't do that. So you know, I just go on record saying I don't agree with the process to begin with. I do think there needs to be an appeal.
Okay, so I guess what town council is saying is that if we're going to have an appeal, it should be to, you know, not to the full board. Tracy's recommended to the chair, so that they don't have to wait and deal with public meeting law, 48 hours postings and things of that nature. Are you comfortable with that process?
I am, yes.
Okay, how about you, Mark?
You're gonna have to repeat that again. I thought we were just the appeal process that was discussed was to one individual.
That's correct.
Right. Tracy would suggested that would be the licensing chair.
Correct.
Okay. Well, let me just be on the record. I like the memo as written, the proposed policy as written. I think Karen and Mark and Jay have done a great job. And I'm very comfortable with that. I think that's the best way to help people move forward in the community. But if it's the will of the other board members to go along with an appeal to the licensing chair, I can live with that. But
I think you'd have an appeal in a rare circumstance, very frankly.
I agree. I agree with you.
I think Mark's an accommodating guy, and he'll work something out with them. And if he's telling a business, well, you can't do this, I think he won't stop there. He'll show them what they can do.
I agree. I agree completely. I think they've laid out a very, very good plan. My other question for Jay is, Jay, in this proposal, is there sort of are we linking this to like the pandemic or the governor's order or something, so that at some point when we get to some degree of normalcy, it expires, or does it stay in effect until we decide as a board to discontinue it?
So it at a maximum, it would be until November 1st. That's in the governor's order. And I believe that might be in your own paperwork too. So it would terminate then anyway. And you have the authority through the conditions that Mark imposes. If they felt it should close out in Labor Day, that could be 2, or October 1st, that would be a fine condition as well. But it goes the latest. I think it's up on your screen now that it automatically expires on November 1st.
Okay. The other question that I have is, thank you, Jay. The other question is, there are a number of items that are highlighted here, and I think, tell me if I'm wrong, either Karen or Mark, but I think someone might be looking for some guidance on some of these other items as well. Is that correct, Karen?
That is correct, Mark. So there's highlighted items in the policy, and those are wholly related to the fees, whether the board shall or shall not require fees.
I make a motion we shall not.
Okay, so that would be, do you want to vote on each of these things individually, Mr. Chairman, or do you want to have
I think we'll take them individually. Tracy has a motion that the first part of this be adopted without fees and with the appeal process we discussed.
And that's been seconded.
You're gonna second that?
I'll
Okay.
second it.
All right, so let's vote on that first. Tracy,
Aye.
no, Norm,
Yes.
Mark,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. So that passes by a vote of 4-0. Now let's go on to the second part. The alcohol. Jay, will you give us an overview on your opinion as to whether the board can delegate their statutory authority over licensing, and then switch from that to that conference call you had with Ralph Sacramone, the
Sure.
attorney for the ABCC?
So under the governor's order, it says clearly that with respect to the zoning piece of it, that the selectmen can develop a process where we then have developed guidance, as have other municipal council, that you can delegate, because it doesn't say how you do it or don't do it. And it says that the selectmen can develop a process. In the alcohol section, the only relief given is from public hearing notice and notifying or getting the approval of the ABCC. Those are the two main pieces of it. It doesn't otherwise waive anything or say the selectmen can develop a process. So our initial way of thinking with that was that, well, everything else is normal with the exception of the public hearing part and getting the approval of the ABCC. Then after we issued our guidance on that, we have weekly conference calls, the Mass Municipal Lawyers Association, with various state officials from DOR, from the AG's office, and other parts. And on this call, Ralph Sacramone, who's counsel for the ABCC, was in attendance, and someone asked the question. It's a large conference call. Well, we can delegate for zoning. Is there any thought to delegating from on the liquor side? And some people chimed in that it doesn't say that. And Sacramone said, well, we don't have a problem with it at the ABCC. Now, whether or not you could tease that out of the governor's order is one thing, but if we have the cover of the ABCC, I feel really comfortable that if you decide to delegate, that we would have a defensible argument for it, in that the regulatory agency that has had a hand in this has blessed it. So I will say, however, that we have heard that the legislature may come in behind this order and develop special legislation. It hasn't happened yet. So who knows if that will fill in some of these gaps. But for now, I think it would be defensible for you to delegate if that's the way you want to go.
But defensible not based on the governor's order, defensible on the basis that the ABCC's council says that they would accept that.
Right. So, I mean, how would this come out in the wash if someone felt we exceeded our authority by delegating? They would challenge the practice through a declaratory judgment action in Superior Court. I feel comfortable defending it in the first instance, but by the time they got around to getting a review of the court, we'd be well beyond where we need to be for these processes, and the most they would get is a remand anyway. From a practical matter, as long as we have a defensible argument, it's likely to end up being gospel. I feel it would be defensible, and that the practical aspects of attacking it would not likely bear fruit from anyone who might object, and I'm not even sure who would object to that delegation.
I would like to make a motion that we revise the alcohol section, the second sentence that says applications shall be considered by the Board of Selectmen. I'd like that to be applications shall be considered by the town administrator and may be granted on a provisional basis, subject only to final approval by the Board of Selectmen at a public meeting, and that is duly noticed, and that's fine if that's what's required.
I'd second that.
I'm not sure what that means. So he gets, the town administrator would grant the license provisionally, and then what? What
And then
happens after
Subject
that?
only to final review by, right, fine. Right, but then in other words, they could go ahead on, as if it was approved, subject to our approving or giving final approval at a regularly noticed meeting.
What would kick in that review by us?
Their application.
Their application, yeah.
But I mean, who would initiate that review?
So I think, I'm not going to speak for Norm, but what I think is what he's trying to do is say, as long as Dan has everything he needs and he feels comfortable with it, he can approve them to go ahead and do it. And then we can compile all of those in one time as quickly as possible and have one
Right.
hearing later on. But in the meantime, as long as everything's done and Dan approves it, then it would be, they won't have to wait for a duly posted meeting.
I guess my concern there, though, Tracy, is Jay, is that part of the expansion that Dan would be granting, and I think it makes a lot of sense, Norm's motion, don't get me wrong, but a lot of times this is dependent upon a floor plan and maybe his discussion, and if they change position and physically alter their premises, and then the select board, for whatever reason, changes that determination upon their final review, then it kind of restarts everything for them. So I'm not saying one way that any process is particularly perfect, but if they have a provisional yes, but it still has to be ratified, that ratification, it's implied or implicit in that ratification that the select board could take a different position.
Correct, but I think I would have more of a problem with that with the outdoor seating process because there's so much money involved in allowing that expansion. So, you know, some of them have to buy tables and tents and prepare the ground and fencing and whatever. So having that provisional with that might be a little bit more difficult, but serving alcohol, if something changed with that, I don't really see the negative to the business, whereas at least they'd have the opportunity in the interim. I mean, what's the alternative is we don't give them a provisional and they wait until we have to have a public hearing. And I mean, they're still going to get the same result at the end anyway.
You could
know,
make the person's decision final. You have that authority.
Say that one more
These
time.
people
Joel.
are already operating. These people are already operating. They've been operating under a license that we have approved in the past. I mean, it's not new ground.
The licensing you approved in the past only pertains to the building in which the liquor is served. It does not pertain to any other premises, part of the premises. So you're licensing a new part of the premises, which is why you have
I understand that.
all this to deal with.
Right, I understand that.
Right, but they have to submit a plan, right? They have to submit a plan. They have to show that it's contained. All of that can be done by Dan. The big question would be the noise, the neighborhood, the hours. That's something that we could put in our rules later on about how we feel about that. But I mean, I just think for us to compile all this and them to have to wait till we have a public hearing is just, it's a burden. They need to get going.
Yeah.
Okay, so Norm, you have a motion to change the Yarmouth Board of Selectmen to the town administrator. Right?
I'll restate, I could repeat my motion if you want. Application shall be considered by the town administrator and granted on a provisional basis, subject only to final Board of Selectmen review at a public meeting that is duly noticed.
I think town council's problem is the review part. Because once you license the premises, they're legally entitled to operate those licensed premises. I don't think you can give it to them and then take it away from them.
Well,
You with me, Jay?
I am. I think you could give it, if it's well understood that it could be given and taken away, then yeah, I think you can.
Look, I think the wording that I proposed will make it clear to the businesses that they come in with a well thought out plan that Dan can approve. And I think if anything, it creates even a greater sense of responsibility on the part of the business to come in with a well thought out plan.
Our alcohol license, the underlying sentiment that we've always taken is not going to change. If there are a complaint or police activity or anything else that could be brought before us, that doesn't change regardless if we allow the expansion or not. So there is a mechanism there additionally, after the license is issued for an expansion, that we can act upon any complaints if we need to.
The biggest thing that we're talking about here is that the outdoor seating in one way or another where the alcohol is going to be served is contained in some manner so that people don't start walking away willy-nilly with drinks in their hands and start walking out on the street, down sidewalks, whatever the case may be. I mean, that's really what we're talking about. And so it seems to me that it's, fairly simple and straightforward if we express that in what we're expecting the businesses to do. And during the outdoor seating review, it should be pretty easy to say, look, you got to have this area roped in, and you need to have signage that indicates to people that they cannot take drinks outside of this area.
It's all part of the provisional application here.
Right. So, I don't think we need to overly complicate this thing. We need to simplify and try to make the process smooth and quick.
Yeah, under 9, it says for applicants proposing to serve alcohol, they should be considered by the ABCC advisory regarding guidelines for extension of premises to patio and outdoor areas. The ABCC has indicated that they will enforce those guidelines so that no matter what happens at the local level with licensing, if there's non-compliance with those guidelines, they will take action against the business. And that talks about roped in areas and things of that nature, Norm, so people don't wander off with drinks.
Well,
And
it
they
has
have to
number
be in
6.
view of the business and so forth.
Number 6 provides a physical barrier. They're all tips trained. That doesn't change. Everybody knows that they can't serve minors and they can't let it leave the building.
Yeah. But
Right,
these guys,
right, we're not doing the we're not doing the liquor license de novo process here.
no, I understand
That's
that.
all in existence. All that we're really trying to do is to,
We're extending
you know,
We're extending it to outdoor areas, but when we go to outdoor areas, that's when the ABCC guidelines kick in. Jay, you with me?
I am. So what is the particular, I mean,
On number 9, it says for applicants, this would be a requirement. You're familiar with the ABCC guidelines for the extension of premises, the patios?
yeah, I mean,
areas?
loosely, I can't recite them, but I know that they're very bright line. I mean, there are some do's and don'ts in there that are absolutely obligatory.
Right. And those businesses are gonna have to comply with that. We don't have the authority to waive those.
That is correct. Those are requirements. There's still a fair bit of discretion though here. Just how many tables, where they are. The other part of this that gets trickier, and so it's not really particularly relevant to this question, it's if someone is expanding onto a sidewalk. But that's a different issue altogether.
Okay, so anybody else on this? Did anyone second Norm's motion?
I did.
Tracy did, okay. You ready to vote?
So could you just repeat what it is we're voting on?
Norm wants to change the Yarmouth Board of Selectmen in the second part of this document that we're discussing to the town administrator. Was it subject to final approval of the Board of Selectmen, Norm?
correct.
Do I read that correctly? We'd have to make some other edits. For example, it says application shall be considered by the Board of Selectmen at a public meeting that is duly noticed. We'd have to delete that sentence. And then it says the Board of Selectmen shall record all decisions with the town clerk. So I think that's got to be changed to say all decisions of the town administrator. And or the Board of Selectmen have to be recorded with the town clerk, et cetera. So that's got to be cleaned up in several parts. And then what about the fee waiver? Do we have a fee waiver on this too? Norm?
As far as I'm concerned, we should not have any fees.
Okay, so you'd also like to make that as part of your motion, that you not have any fees. Correct?
Correct.
And Tracy, that's part of your second?
Second.
Yes, okay. All right, we'll go to a vote. Norm,
Aye.
Mark,
Let me make sure I just understand. The Board of Selectmen are to review each one of these, or are we as an appeal?
no, I'm not real clear as to,
Let me make this motion for the third time.
Norm, I understand your motion. We're trying to figure out the meaning of it. Go ahead, let us hear it.
Applications shall be considered by the town administrator and may be granted on a provisional basis, subject only to Board of Selectmen review and approval at a public meeting that is duly noticed.
Okay, what's your question, Mark?
Well, my question is that it still means that they're coming both to the town administrator and to the select board. It sounds to me, if I'm listening to this, It sounds like they're coming to both.
I don't think they need to come to either one. They submit their application with the requisite information. And if Dan's comfortable with it, he can approve it, and then it gets all compiled in one public hearing for us as soon as we can have a.
So, and again, that approval is provisional, but it could be subject to be changed by us.
That's
So
correct.
Mark's question is, and it's a fair question, do we have to approve every application?
Then now the motion reads to me as if it does.
Do those approvals stay in effect until it gets to us? And then we have to ratify the approval? Is that what your intent is, Norm?
That's correct.
Okay. So Dan would give, okay, I get you now. So Dan would give the approval. It's got to go before us. We probably have a whole bunch of hearings maybe on one night.
We don't even need a
And as
hearing.
long as the board approves those, they're good. And ones that.
And I would anticipate that it would be in the consent agenda.
Okay, yeah, you could handle it that way, certainly. And
It
then
doesn't
check out
need to be-
anything that's problematical and have a hearing on that?
Correct.
Is that your intent?
No,
Okay, I get it. That satisfy your question, Mark?
My only other question is as Dan, I'm interested in his commentary on this. Dan, are you there? Do you see any administratively or logistics or procedural issues with this at all?
I
The
personally.
workability of it?
No, understood. I'm not a lawyer by any stretch of the imagination, but it is licensing and activities associated with alcoholic licensing are definitely the Board of Selectmen as the licensing entity's responsibility. I personally would feel more comfortable with a member of the board assuming that responsibility. But I also think if the member of the board assumed that responsibility to do administrative approval on that, we wouldn't even need the second step everybody's discussing, because a member of the board who is also potentially a member of the license committee would be the one making that initial approval. So I think by adding me in there, there's a certain, board's uncomfortableness and they want to get an approval factor. I think if you really wanted to just cut this right down, empower, and I don't want to speak for the chairman by any stretch of imagination, but, in my experience here in town, the person best suited that I've seen here to make these decisions would be the chairman because of his longstanding role as the license chairman. And that should just be final. If that's your policy, the chairman makes the approval after we prepare the paperwork for him, and it's final. And I think that's kind of how that conversation began to go down the road. I think adding me in there just adds another step that you're not comfortable with having be the approval. And personally, I'm not comfortable assuming that responsibility because in the, under the state law, it's the Board of Selectmen is the licensing entity.
Right.
So that's
Yeah,
just.
thank
I'll do
you,
whatever
Dan.
you want me to do. I'm fine with that. That's just my own thought process on this.
No, I appreciate your insight because it's very helpful. Because from my point of view, I'm a little bit nervous about a two-step process. I'm very comfortable with a one-step process. I think that makes it easier for the business community as opposed to dragging it out and extending it out. I have trouble seeing this board meeting with the frequency that is necessary to ratify or rubber stamp a lot of these things. I personally am very comfortable with the chairman having the board delegate that authority to the chairman. Should the chairman, be willing and able to take that responsibility on? To me, that provides the kind of significant streamlining that, quite frankly, people are looking for. I know Norm's well-intentioned, and I get that, but to me, I think from a process point of view, it complicates things more than helps streamline things. So my approach would be to designate the chair to make those calls, and I'm very comfortable with that. So the motion as it's on the table, I can't support.
The staff would ensure that all of the requirements that the licensee needs to have at the site, by the time, if we were to go down that road, by the time that application is done, it's been reviewed, it's been inspected. And, so it becomes more of an administrative activity of that individual person that would be in this particular case delegated by the board. But in this case, it stops. You don't even need to worry about that second level step because the board member appointed this way is a member of the board to begin with.
So that's where I'm coming from, Mr. Chairman.
I think inserting the board member and I'm not saying anything about Mike, because I think it's an unreasonable request for a Board of Selectmen member to be placed in that position on a from a time perspective. And I also think that given the fact that staff will have already done all the detailed work, that having the Board of Selectmen member then rubber stamp it is a waste of time. The only reason I had said something about the Board of Selectmen ratifying it is really to meet the requirements of the law or the requirements of the regulations as they're presently proposed.
Tracy?
I agree with Norm. I'm comfortable with Dan, and I think that we could review them as a board. I think that's a lot to put on one person who's not staff, who's not, full-time. And I think it's just as quick as,
I'm not convinced Dan wants to do it.
No, as I said, I will do whatever you want me to do. I was just, Norm's latest explanation puts everything in a better light as it relates to that second action by the board. It's more of a confirmatory type scenario. But I didn't know if the concerns about that initially were related because the board is the licensing entity. I'm not, but that's why the board wanted to weigh in on it. I mean, I have all the confidence in the world. The staff is going to prepare the documentation and do the inspections so that whoever signs it, it's going to be appropriate at that moment in time. So I'm more than happy. I just need to know where to go and what to do. So that's how you want to go. That's fine too.
I'm just trying to streamline it so that it's not all waiting for our board to meet on a monthly basis or every 2 weeks. And, this process needs to be dealt with in the next 2 weeks. I mean, realistically, businesses are going to be coming in the next 2 weeks.
No, I hear what you're saying. I just disagree. I don't think it streamlines it. I just think it complicates it. I'd go along with it if the chairman's unable to take that responsibility on. But like you said, and Dan said, and others have said, the staff's going to be doing most of the work.
I would do it if I could have an alternate. So that if I couldn't do it or got too busy, there'd be another selectman that could do it as well.
I'm comfortable with Dan doing it personally. I think that it's a good process because the board as a whole still gets to make their vote, and I trust that Dan knows what we look for, and I think it's just too much of a burden on a board member to be doing that, and I think that Dan's completely capable and there, so I'm still comfortable with the motion. Where's Eric when you need him?
We do need him. Eric, are you out there?
You call in.
No, I'm just saying it seems to me like it's split, and I understand that, but I just don't think it's fair to a board member to have that type of full-time responsibility. We're not paid staff. Mike has a living he has to make, and I appreciate that he wants to do it, but you know what? We have paid staff, and sorry, Dan, but you're a professional and you know what you got to look for, and
I just need you to tell me what to do. That's all.
Go back to you, Mark. I
I understand what Norm's trying to do. I just don't think it does it. That's the reality. I think you're gonna have a two-stage process. If I'm a business owner and I know that I get a provisional, I'm gonna be somewhat uncomfortable until I get to the board and have the board sign off. I've also been following the tendencies of our board. We tend to not like to meet with a great deal of frequency, the kind of frequency that's gonna be needed to stay on top of these things. That's why I'm comfortable, rather than a two-stage process,
Yeah,
a
but
one-stage process.
they have a
Let the staff do the work. Let me just finish, please. Let the staff do the work, which they're going to do, and then tee it up for the chairman of the board to let him be the final say on this piece of it. I think that works. It's very streamlined. It works very, very quickly. So dragging it out over a two-stage process, I don't think simplifies things. I think it complicates things. And I think the business community won't interpret it as a streamlining at all. I have complete confidence in Dan. I don't want people to interpret anything different in that.
Well, I'll meet as often as possible, but having an approval
Let me,
tomorrow
I'll hold you. Huh?
and having an approval tomorrow is a whole lot better than waiting until who knows when. I mean, what difference is it going to make to the business if they have an approval by Dan, whether they wait for the two-step process for us 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now? They're not going to, it's not going to matter to them as long as they're in business and operating.
I just don't see how people are going to make an investment or make a commitment of resources to something without getting the final approval from the board. So we're ultimately, a two-step process means we're going to have to meet with more frequency and deal with this stuff. I just don't see us doing that. Our practice has been in July not to do that, in August not to do that. So I think that's the thing to be concerned about. Like I said, I'm very comfortable with the chairman taking this on. This is a provisional program. It goes until whenever. If we don't like the way it's working, we could always meet and cut it back and make changes. Or if it's overwhelming for the chairman, we can make an adjustment. He said he'd be willing to do this or able to do it if there was a second. So, you know.
But I said I would want an alternate.
An alternate, rather. Yeah, not a second, but an alternate.
In case something gets sick or something like that.
Well,
Right.
you know, ultimately, I think having one person make the decision is a difficult process. I don't know how Mike would feel comfortable making that ultimate decision all by himself.
I guess then the question is how seriously are we about streamlining?
Well, I'm just saying it, like Norm said, it should be on the consent agenda for down the road where we all can.
It would already have been looked at by staff.
Right.
So there's no additional steps involved. It's already looked at by staff.
I hear, I'm talking about the frequency of our board meetings.
Well,
The
we've been meeting.
practice. Well, that's the point. The point is going to be, there's going to have to be a lot more frequency of board meetings if that's going to work. It just hasn't happened in the past.
Why? Why do you think there has to be more board meetings?
You think people, I don't believe people were going to just act on a provisional. I think they're going to wait ultimately to get the board's decision. A provisional, then final ratification by us. I just don't see how someone's going to look at that and feel that the provisional gives them the green light to go. They're certainly going to be concerned about what we end up doing.
You know, well, whatever.
You have a point. If someone were to expend a significant amount of money for a tent or something like that, would they want to do that without final approval? There could be some hesitancy, I suppose.
Yeah, I think the more certain this is, the more quicker it is, the faster it is. One-stop shopping would be great. If you did the town administrator without us, then I'd compromise on that, but there should be one stop.
Oh, I don't have a problem with that. Be happy to modify it to subject to town administrator approval, period.
Second.
Okay, ready to vote on that? So Dan will have the final authority on the liquor licensing. So you're gonna agree with that, Mark? Because I'm probably gonna.
I'll go along with that. I mean, I'd stick to my original guns, but I understand you have some reservations about taking that in, so I'll support that to move this along.
All right, so Mark,
Aye.
Norm,
Aye.
Tracy.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain on it because I don't see anything in the governor's order that allows us to delegate that authority outside of the board. And for that reason, and only that reason, I'm abstaining. But otherwise, I support it at a practical and an expedient level. Okay, what's next?
Well, on that note, could you also, because that was that motion expedited, did that also include I know you want to waive the fees, or do you want to just take a second vote to clearly indicate that the fees will be waived as well?
Somebody want to make a motion on fee waiver? We should probably have that vote separate, just to be sure.
I move that.
Alcohol licensing, there'd be a fee waiver. You making that motion, Mark?
Yep.
Do I have a second?
Second. This is just related to the COVID expansion.
Yes.
November, not generally speaking.
Right.
Right.
Right, that's it.
Okay. We'll take a vote. Mark?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Norm?
Aye.
Okay, so that passes by a 3-0-1.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
may I ask one question?
sure.
I think it might be helpful if Dan is making these decisions. If you all look at the temporary alteration of premise, the form we had developed, on that form, we note the hours of operation. And I don't know if the board would like to provide the town administrator with any guidance. You know, it's my understanding, a lot of the licenses that are existing go until 1 o'clock in the morning.
My recommendation would be to keep, for anyone that's already licensed, keep the hours the same.
Right.
Why should they, because they're having an additional liquor service outside, why should the hours of the business change?
No, I'm fine with that. I think that when we were chatting about this, we were just thinking that it's outdoors as opposed to indoors. And that may impact
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, I don't know. Most licenses, what do they run in restaurants? So 11 o'clock? For indoor dining? Good question.
I think, again, we should go with a presumption that they're gonna run their business outdoors on a without any difficulty. And you know, any business should know at this stage that if we get a lot of complaints, there's going to be some issues. So you know, I just think that we should put no more barriers in front of people.
I wish we had Linda on here. I think most of these licenses run, I don't know. You have an anti-noise bylaw that kicks in at 11. I don't think they should extend longer than 11. But maybe even that's late. I don't know. Have we gotten any feedback from, is Mark's not still here, is he?
He is.
Is he? No, Mark Grills?
Yes, I'm here.
Mark, have you gotten any information as to what most businesses are requesting in terms of hours, or have they stopped short of that?
They've stopped short of that.
Do you have any recommendations on that?
I'm with you with the 11 o'clock ordinance. Eventually, it's going to just put a burden on the police to receive the phone calls, because they'll call me first, and my answer is going to be to call the police because they're the enforcement authority. So, but I mean, whatever the board wishes to do, I'm okay with it. I just going to be able to tell the public what to expect when they call.
Does anybody have any input on that? Dan, you have any ideas on that?
Yeah, I think it would be appropriate considering that many of these locations will be in close proximity to residential locations, that 11 is probably the outside limit as to the operation. Or you could take the tack, let them put the hours in that they're normally operated for, and we could put a caveat onto the application, indicate that, you know, to whatever degree, like we have anyways, if we receive a lot of public complaints related to it, like you would normally, you could be called in front of the board for a potential revocation or some sort of activity. But 11 seems to me to be the most reasonable situation.
Yeah, I mean, nightclubs and such, you know, that's not happening. People, you know, another issue we have to deal with, and we haven't talked about yet, is entertainment.
Right.
Well, that's separate. You got to go through the normal process. The governor has not granted any relief on entertainment at all.
So if you're just talking about people sitting outside drinking, typically that needs to be associated with food. The kitchens usually close. I think 11's probably fine. I don't think anybody's probably looking to be a bar open till, you know, the normal hours of 1 without some type of entertainment or so forth. So
Yeah. So let's just have an understanding that whatever, Dan will make that determination not to exceed 11 p.m.
I'm
Somebody
fine with
might request to be open
Yeah,
till
I'm
9
fine.
to 10, fine, go with that. You know?
Yep, I'm fine with that.
Earlier then, I don't know, I mean, I suppose they could serve lunches as well out there, outside. So do you want to put a limit on they can't open any earlier than a certain hour? There's probably should be something. Maybe 11 o'clock.
Well, except for, well, I know you're having breakfast restaurants that are preparing to open up, you know?
Oh, really?
Oh, yes, yeah, yeah.
You got mimosas and some Bloody Marys coming.
I mean, the safest thing to do is have an outside cap at, say, at 11 o'clock, but with their normal early, you know, opening hours be presented in the application. You know, we could just indicate that for this provisional period of time under this governor's order, 11 o'clock is the maximum allowable for outdoor dining.
I like that maximum too, because then you can
Right, exactly.
use your
All
judgment.
right, so Dan, you'll have to figure out the no earlier than part of it.
Yeah, not a problem.
I mean, somebody comes in and says, I'm gonna close at 11, but I want to open at 1 in the morning. I mean, I don't think you'd be going for that, hopefully.
No.
All right. Anything else on that? Good.
I just wanted to go back, Mike, on the issue of the fees. Were you an abstention on that as well?
Yeah, I felt that I you know, I would want to waive the fees, but I felt that I didn't vote on the main part of the motion. I shouldn't vote on that part of the
Okay,
motion.
that's
But I'm in favor of waiving fees on all of this. Okay?
Yes, that's good. Thank
So
you.
that's really all one motion that was kind of taken in 2 steps. That's why I kept my vote the same.
Understood. The last item I have for you under this, oh, by the way, thank you. This has been I know the town knows it's a top priority. The staff, they have been working since this thing was published on this application with town council, with every waking hour to get it in front of you in this fashion with as minimal amount of debate as possible, because they know how important all of this is to all of you and to the town and to the businesses. So we'll make sure that it goes as smoothly as possible.
How are we going to be able to communicate this information to them best?
This will be quickly, I think we were getting ready such that once the approval came tonight, that we would start the media outreach to the restaurants. We have a list of the emails for them, and through the chamber, through social media, we'll be able to contact everybody imaginable who would need to take advantage of this situation.
Linda's got quite an email bank, and so does Tom Murphy.
Yeah. So we feel comfortable that we're going to be able to get that outreach out with all those different avenues right away. Yep.
All right, annual town meeting update.
Yeah, I've asked Pat Armstrong, she's leading up our logistics effort on town meetings, so she's been very busy with her team. I believe she's still on the call. Yep.
Pat, you with us?
I'm with you, Mr. Chairman.
Can you give us an update, please, on the annual town meeting?
Absolutely. I had an opportunity to meet with Ken Jenks and Sandy Cashin over at Matakey's. We walked the property, both the auditorium, the gymnasium, the outside cement apron, and then also over to the cafeteria and some of the other areas. And we've created a plan that could accommodate well over 200 people at this point. We understand the requirement for signage and spacing, and we brought it to Bruce Murphy today for an initial draft review, and he's very comfortable with the plan that we have in place.
Okay.
We
Any
have-
questions of Pat? Mark, Tracy? Norm?
What's that?
You have any questions of Pat about town meeting facilities?
Yeah, my question is how did Pat draw the short straw?
Well, as you know, when there's a event that needs to occur, no better
Yeah.
person than Pat Armstrong.
I understand she gets things done. It's just a lot of work. Other
Yeah.
towns, they have them, unfortunately, we've got some personnel changes. I know in other towns, it's the DPW director, it's the town clerk and associated staff that have to pull it all together. Then there's the technical side, lining up all the technical stuff.
Yeah.
And then now with the COVID, you're gonna probably have to need, people are gonna have to have extra pens and sanitizer and all the other stuff. So I have great sympathy for Ms. Armstrong here in terms of her challenge. And I just think that whatever you need, this is obviously going to be an incredibly unusual town meeting with the kinds of things that will be needed to provide the kind of public safety that's required and so forth. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming, Dan, you've got whatever she needs, you'll make sure that she gets it, right?
Absolutely. And I can't say enough about when we put this plan together, how quickly Ken Jenks and Sandy Cashin and Carol Woodbury signed on to the effort using the logistics support that they have for the schools. Terry Duenas, same thing. We outlined the basic plan that we needed to have, and they all jumped right in. And Mark Grills did the original layout for the number of people we can have. And as long as the technology all turns on when it's supposed to on the 22nd, we'll be in really good shape. So
Cross your fingers.
Yep.
Have we ever budgeted? Here's my last question, then I'll turn it over to Tracy. My last question is on the technology side. In the past, have we ever budgeted funds for the technology as it relates to town meeting?
Yeah, so as part of our agreement with Terry, they've handled the normal communications that have gone on with that. But in this particular case, there's a little bit more because we have a remote location. So we have availability of some COVID-19 reimbursement funds available through CARES Act to us, and this clearly is impacted by COVID-19.
Got it. Yeah, no, because the IT side, the technical side, that's critically important, particularly if we're going to have, because I had to do this when I was in Brewster in the town administrator's office there. We really spent a lot of time getting each of the individual rooms set up.
Yeah.
We had to have deputy moderators sworn in by the moderator, and then we had to have walkie-talkies so that people knew. And then you have to make sure those other arrangements, everybody feels like they're treated equally. There's some requirements there. So there's an enormous amount of logistics. That's why I was saying in the very, very beginning that I felt bad that Pat drew the short straw on this, because she's going to need a lot of help from a lot of people. And on the IT stuff and the communication stuff, that is critically important. And, I just hope and pray that the arrangements with that television operation there, that they deliver what we need, because it's a lot of work and a lot of capabilities needed to make this happen. So that's all.
Thank you, Mark. I've had a couple of conversations with Terry Duenas at this point, and you're right. He's suspect of the existing technology at the school. They have a mobile production van that they've been using for a bit to do other video, audio productions onto live television. We're hoping to utilize that. And we're also hoping to connect that with the audio from Cape Cod audio that does the mics and the other processes. We've looked at having the cafeteria as an alternative area if we need it, if attendance starts to build. And I've also talked with the moderator and Susan Regan, the new appointed town clerk, and temporary, Dan, or provisional. So that we can support her in this effort. That's why I've stepped in, because Susan's very new to this. She just got appointed on Friday. So I'm going to do at least the initial pieces of it and hopefully all the way through town meeting on the 22nd. And we're going through all the staff safety protocols as well as the attendees safety protocols, the audio visual so that people at home can see it and aren't frustrated. We're hoping to test it ahead of time, so that on that Monday, when it goes live, we're not going to have glitches, though I can't promise that. And everybody is kind of looking at those pieces. And then when it's all said and done, you know, I hope we can walk away and feel that we've really accomplished something positive with this special town meeting, annual town meeting, and set a good role. And we'll be documenting all the steps so that people in the future will know how to do this.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, anything else on annual town meeting? Okay,
That's all I have.
go to
9 o'clock.
board and committee actions. We have one resignation.
Yep, I'm asking the board to accept with gratitude and appreciation the resignation of Martha McCluskey from the Mid-Cape Cultural Council.
I'll make that motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, Mark,
Aye.
Tracy,
Aye.
Norm?
Aye.
I vote aye as well, so that passes 4-0. Projected 2020 agenda items. The next meeting is the 16th, which is 1 week before town meeting.
I do have a few items. I don't have them handy right now, but a couple things have come up that'll go on that. But we could also use that as an opportunity to review the warrant in advance of the town meeting. We're also doing a video project of introducing the warrant articles that'll be published on the website. That should be done by Friday, so there's an easy explanation as to the warrant articles. But if anybody has anything specific that they'd like to have put on for the 16th, let me know.
How about a review of how we're doing with our outdoor licensing?
Sure. Yeah. You know what I was going to do is, as part of the entire wrap up, everything that goes on in a week's time, I'll put in front of the board as for your information part of that packet, so that you'll know what has been approved as we go through. And I'm sure I can give you daily updates on that as well.
Okay.
Perfect.
I was not so much interested as which businesses got approved, which is important, obviously. We like to know that, but how the process is working and whether there are any problems and things of that nature.
Yeah, we'll continue to have the COVID updates and operations report. There'll be likely some additional work plans that'll be in front of you. I know we were talking earlier today. DCR and many communities are opening up playgrounds for activities starting on Monday. So I've asked our departments to get ready for playground openings. That would include the bathrooms at the playgrounds and things of this nature. So we'll continue to update you as opening guidance continues to come from the state.
And possibly our summer programs.
Right. We should know a little bit more about that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I would expect that's forthcoming in view of the fact that youth programs are now allowed.
Yeah, so youth programs are now allowed, and also the daycare, childcare is got guidance now on it as well. So camps are coming in, as well as more information for summer school and things of this nature.
Okay. All right. Anybody have anything else they would like to talk about on the agenda review?
Well, on the 16th, let me just ask the other question. Did someone mention golf? Did we resolve the golf thing? The
Well,
driving range?
golf,
I was gonna go back to that after we
Okay.
got through this.
yeah,
Okay.
so I give you the
What
plan.
happened what happened to Scott? Was he here and then gone, or did he just not?
I'm not sure. I'll have to look into that.
Okay.
tomorrow, but
All right.
we give you we give you the plans for the opening. The guidance for the opening is based on what comes from either the trade group or the state. So we're anticipating that driving ranges have the go ahead, and that's why we put that in front of you in advance.
Okay.
It's for your own benefit to know that this is how that's going to go down. So the next hurdle for golf, as a for instance, though, is food service. So in discussing, we've been really focusing on the play aspect, making sure that that goes, and then food service, when we have indoor guidance on indoor seating arrangements, that's when we plan to go full with the full food situation.
So when will the driving range open?
I got to check in with Scott tomorrow and find out what the latest guidance is. I mean, there's so much in front of us right now. It's very hard to keep a scorecard on all this stuff. But as soon as I know, I'll let you know. I can tell you, speaking of golf, we did successfully procure the point of sale vendor. So we had the vendor for that software at all the sites. And the good news is a lot of their technology is completely compatible with our technology, with the exception of one computer system at the Bass River Grill, which we're going to have to upgrade, which is not a big deal, but that did go through, and we will be making the migration over to the new point of sale system when that information is available. So that is sought after.
So what is that vendor?
It's not Chelsea or T-Snap. It's I forget the name of it offhand, but I'll have a report on that. I was waiting I knew they had to walk through today, and there was a couple of other logistical issues to work through, but I'll have Scott generate a memo for you, give you an update on that for next week.
Okay.
And Scott's memo of June 4th, he says, in light of recent communication from the state administration and when the governor signs the phase 2 executive order, the driving range and practice facilities will be allowed to open. So it I'm not sure of this, but it kind of suggests that it is allowed to be open now that phase 2 is underway.
Yeah.
I think effective yesterday.
Yeah, phase 2, we're underway on phase 2. that's a level of detail that all that we got going on.
Well, phase 2 itself has certain steps and everything, so. But it sounds like it's either open or about to be.
Yeah, very close. But I'll get the word on that tomorrow.
Okay, individual items. Norm, do you have individual items?
Back to the schedule. When are we going to talk about have assignments on the warrant? Are we doing that at the next meeting?
Yeah, we can do that at the next meeting. Yep.
And how are we approaching the board position on warrant items? I don't think we've completed all that.
Yeah, no, we haven't even, I don't think we've even started that. So, you can take those positions, we can get that out of the way next week, or you can do it from the floor. I was planning on posting a meeting, obviously, for that morning of the town meeting anyways, like we always do. But I mean, certainly that can be on next week's agenda.
I think we should put it on and see. I mean, we may be able to get a vote on all the articles, but I think even if we have a few that we need to wait until town meeting, we'll probably be able to get a vote on the majority of them. So let's do that. Norm, any personal items other than that agenda matter?
No, I guess I just continuing on with the discussion we had last week with regard to the balancing of reductions in the budget among various interests. And I guess what I'm saying is that we've taken the approach in the 2021 budget that the all of the capital will be removed from the town budget, basically. And with regard to, and as I said last week, my concern is that we are placing the entire burden on the capital program, that we're going to have to spend that money anyways at some point in time. And we have not asked the school system, which is 50% of our budget, to contribute to anything. And of the remainder that is in our town budget, 2/3 of our spending is related to payroll. And we've done nothing in that regard. Not, well, I won't say we've done nothing. We have a hiring freeze, and you know, that's not doing nothing. That is significant. But nonetheless, I'm very concerned that the approach that we've taken is out of balance and places a burden on our taxpayers in terms of, ultimately in terms of service levels, because we're reducing capital expenditures that for now, that ultimately will have to be made anyways. So we're kicking the can down the road. And we haven't even begun conversations with the unions or with the school administration with regard to what might happen here. And I know we've had an enormous amount on our plates, but I think we need to move ahead with those discussions. I don't think we should be assuming that we're going to take $5 million or $3 million out of our capital plan and eliminate all the other expenditures in free cash, and that should be the entire source of savings. I don't think that's right.
Mark,
I don't have any other items to bring up.
Tracy,
I'm all set.
okay. I don't have any either at this time. We'll go to town administrator items.
Yes, there, in that consent agenda, there's some donations relative to the Grays Beach Boardwalk.
Yeah,
And if you could motion to pass that.
Move the consent agenda.
we have a second. Okay,
Second.
Norm, how do you vote on it?
Aye.
Tracy,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That passes by a vote of 4-0.
And I did include, I didn't get it into the packet, but it went to you by email today, a thank you letter from the board to Maureen about the Memorial Day ceremony. So if you're good with that, I have a copy for Mike's signature on behalf of the board.
I saw
That's
that
great.
letter.
I'm on board with it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else, Dan?
Well, as you can imagine, we got a lot of stuff going on here. And I've always said this, we have a very talented team of professionals here for the town of Yarmouth, and they know what's in front of them. We talk about it, and we're not going to disappoint. So I have all the faith in the world that we're partners with our businesses, and we'll get them up and running as expeditiously as possible. And and salvage as good a summer as we can.
Good.
We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor, Norm,
Aye,
Mark,
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
I'm gonna vote a double aye as well. Thank you, everybody.